Recording in progress. 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 Recording in progress.
In bad company, the three poisons grow stronger. The activities of learning, reflecting, and meditating decline, and love and compassion are lost. Give up such companions. This is the way of a bodhisattva. In bad company, the three poisons grow stronger. The activities of learning, reflecting, and meditating decline, and love and compassion are lost. Consider this friend more dear than your own body. This is the way of a bodhisattva. In bad company, the three poisons grow stronger. The gods themselves imprisoned in samsara protect. Therefore, seek refuge in the three jewels, the undeceiving source of refuge. This is the way of a bodhisattva. The Buddha taught that all the unbearable suffering of the lower realms is caused by wrongdoing. Therefore, never act wrongfully even at the cost of your life. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Like a dewdrop on a blade of grass, the happiness of the three worlds vanishes in but an instant. Strive for the supreme state of never-changing liberation. This is the way of a bodhisattva. When mothers who have loved you since beginningless time are suffering, what good is your own happiness? Therefore, give rise to bodhicitta in order to liberate infinite sentient beings. This is the way of a bodhisattva. All suffering without exception comes from seeking your own happiness. The perfect Buddhas are born from the altruistic mind. Therefore, truly exchange your own happiness for the suffering of others. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Even if someone driven by great desire steals all your wealth or lets others steal it, dedicate to them your body, possessions, and all virtues of the three times. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Even if someone cuts off your head when you haven't done anything wrong, take all their negative deeds upon yourself through the power of compassion. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Even if others slander you throughout a billion worlds, in return speak with a loving mind of their good qualities. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Even if someone exposes your hidden faults and insults you in front of others, view that person as a teacher and bow with respect. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Even if someone you have cared for as dearly as your own child regards you as an enemy, love that person even more as a mother would her ailing child. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Even if someone of equal or lower status, driven by pride, treats you with disdain, respectfully place them on your crown as your teacher. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Though you may be impoverished, always disparaged, gripped by disease and tormented by spirits, never lose courage, but take on the misdeeds and pains of all beings. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Though you may be famous and revered by many, and are as rich as the wealth god himself, having seen that worldly fortune is without essence, do not be proud. This is the way of a bodhisattva. If the enemy, your own anger, is not tamed, subduing outer enemies will only make them increase. Therefore, subdue your own mind with the army of love and compassion. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Sensory pleasures are like salt water. The more you drink, the greater your thirst. Abandon at once all things that give rise to clinging attachment. This is the way of a bodhisattva. The way things appear is your own mind. Mind itself primordially transcends fabricated extremes. Knowing just this, do not create concepts of subject and object. This is the way of a bodhisattva. When you come across things that attract you, like beautiful rainbows in summertime, do not regard them as real and abandon clinging attachment. This is the way of a bodhisattva. All suffering is like the death of your child in a dream. How exhausting it is to hold illusory appearances as real. Therefore, when you meet with difficult circumstances, see them as illusory. This is the way of a bodhisattva. When even one's body must be given up when aspiring for enlightenment, what need is there to mention material things? Therefore, practice generosity without hope of reward or karmic results. This is the way of a bodhisattva. If you lack moral discipline, you cannot accomplish even your own purpose, so wanting to achieve the purpose of others is truly absurd. Therefore, protect your discipline without concern for worldly existence. This is the way of a bodhisattva. For bodhisattvas who desire a wealth of virtue, all harm is like a precious treasure. Therefore, without hostility, be patient with everyone. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Even hearers or solitary realizers who accomplish only their own purpose strive as if putting out a fire on their head. Seeing this, practice with diligence the source of good qualities for the sake of all beings. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Disturbing emotions are destroyed by an insight grounded in calm abiding. Knowing this, cultivate meditative concentration that purely transcends the four formless absorptions. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Without wisdom, the other five perfections alone are not enough to reach complete enlightenment. Thus, combined with skillful means, develop the wisdom that does not distinguish among the three spheres. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Unless you examine your own confused ideas, you might look like a practitioner but not be acting like one. Therefore, always examine yourself and abandon confusion. This is the way of a bodhisattva. If you are driven by disturbing emotions and talk about another bodhisattva's faults, it is actually to your own detriment. So don't mention the faults of those who...
Bodhisattva, eres denigrado. Por lo tanto, no mencionar las faltas a otros de quienes han entrado en el camino Mahāyāna. Esta es la práctica de los bodhisattvas. Recompensa y respeto nos hacen discutir, hacen que escuchar, reflexionar y meditar declinen. Por esta razón, abandonar el apego hacia amigos, relaciones y benefactores es la práctica de los bodhisattvas. Las palabras rudas tensan la mente de otros y deterioran la conducta del bodhisattva. Por ello, abandonar las palabras duras, desagradables para otros. Esta es la práctica de los bodhisattvas. Una vez acostumbrado a estados mentales densos, creencias primitivas, y te habitúas a las emociones oscuras, estas son difíciles de detener con sus antídotos. Por ello, blandiendo el arma de la conciencia y alerta mental, conquistar estos estados mentales oscuros, tan pronto como surjan, es la práctica de los bodhisattvas. En breve, lo que sea que sea, si hagas, pregúntate, ¿cuál es el estado de mi mente? Con constante conciencia y alerta mental, realizar el bien de otros, tal es la práctica de los bodhisattvas. Remover el sufrimiento de seres ilimitados, entendiendo la pureza de las tres esferas, dedicar el mérito obtenido al hacer tal esfuerzo hacia la iluminación. Esta es la práctica de los bodhisattvas.
for those who wish to train on the Bodhisattva's path. This composition will not be admired by the learned, because my intellect is poor and my education is limited. However, I have followed the sutras and the words of holy ones, so I believe these ways of a bodhisattva are not mistaken. Still, because of the vast deeds of bodhisattvas are difficult to grasp by simple-minded beings like myself, I beg the forgiveness of the holy ones for the mass of my errors, such as contradictions and inconsistencies. By the virtue arising from this, may all beings give rise to relative and ultimate bodhicitta, and thereby become like the protector Chenrezig, who does not abide in the extremes of existence or peace.
제저 출라 삼살로 돌로로 사바달라도 그 생각나마 게들려야 장살로 도지게들려나 마바메라 제가 뭐로 봐자고 까줄로만 나서 근데 오이게요 포장내서 산지고 영어원이라서 주고 무슨 도대바사를 러베처럼 또한테 사다던 것에 비정되지 나타서는 뭐 상대 진행을 저저거 저희도 제정로서 사람도 많잖아 주제지 야소매 먼저 와결어서 생기도 너도 나지나 남바 주제는 저서도 저리다 가상 도내 용도에 담기를 타마들서 하나 됐던 봐 지치가는 조조리 이 도내 용도 시바지들이 저 땅지랑 그 평강김치 제 가장 라과 쉬어래 이제 시켜요지 되는 것서 서로 주디 조왕나 나게 심심한 요몽나 그래서 이신나 성태선 이런 풍부시 받으니 가장 저도 휴에서 말이기 풍부하게 나사님 가래나들이 평강김치 저 평강식 과식 맛김치 스마스마 레바 초모조 역체들 대신 요래 옛날 때에는 이런 것을 루이들 루셈이한테 강다지가 되다 나그시나 클라사와 그래 말라리베 자동 총코르지 집에 당마서 뭐 자동 총코르지 집에 가래에 살더니 총코르지 받더니 이제 더니 룸젤라서 와세더니 사다 빠워서 강장미 버리 진진들이데 진지 조반버들이 사는 조반버 그래 사도서 가와요래 삼거요래 때 저한테 요래지 옛날 라기 봐도 강의 샘도 타고 차서 저 샘상화들 라차노 요래 샘상화들이라더니 사마다 힘들게 라차노 되지 랑을 샘이가 있는 앞에는 다다 칼로서 잡던 총코르지 집에 담아서 마디 랑을 샘이가 들이 르데라 랑티보 도도들 인상도 말이 속차 사야 동설만 보요래 다티 사지를 까는 때 가서 집에 시가 쏘는 거래 다 칠리가 때문에 다 대화형 복수서 오고도 동아형 복수서 오고도 나는 벌써 속 차만 보도 드리페는 포카 말되는 포카를 핑핑 버 누군 버도 땅아 포카 나사리들이 고생할 때 근데 핑핑 버려야지 누군 버려 핑농이랑 복수체를 요래지 뭐지 화제로 속 차야지 속 차 타지 차왔더니 무슨 저희 더럽다고 라고하더니 랍도 잠시는 속차 치종을 속차 치종이야 ngô 총총 지화를 가려들 때 저대요 대지젤라디 평강제시 부모가 자와르나 나님모 부모가지 유모가 제크요래 유모가들이 속초가도 신들이 나발치왕가들이 부모가서 대도 자체도 또뭔가 잘 차도 띵하대 마음이는 좋아를 좀 차려오리 이 생조왕가데 영가서 너를 보더라 리셈이가 성도 적네 이 메일이데 저래 너를 통고제들이 저거 도도 나빠져야 매봐래 대로 차들 나는 벌써 속 차탐치 나 선상화라고 샘송 제가 나와 탐지랑 그 샘송 제열이 들이 락버려 들이랑 그 류대랑 나서 차대요래 들이 가자 찍디 주를 사속 샘제서 류그 속 차차 참번 차방 것들이 톱스 사속 샘제로요래 산촉샘 째는 고서 십대에 죽방매가 이게 차로 들 샘대고 세는 거 들이 내배봐 보통 좁아대 이게 차요 거요래 들이 뉴모바들이 세 약하로 난 들이 좁아 좁다 좁아지 좁아이나 들이 세만 들던 좁아자 좁아가래 딴 뉴모바지 뉴모바 마음이 바데 이시 마음이 바데 뉴모바지 가리 마음인데 다지인지 마음이 바래 다지인지 매와라 다지인지 들 마음이 다지인지 차연 거요래 매서 다지인지 매와하고 그래 그게 샘쪽 바래서 말씀 좋아 삼세를 걸어 되고 자기 요리스 그 하고는 다지인지 그래서 나와 통제라는 거 샘들이 같이 망나라고 세대쪽 바래서 남께까지 세고 차요리스 대로 문화같이 자오는 세비바지 하고서들이 딱 하고 이렇게 곰 잡고 피운 그런 송리 탈도는 저듯이 그래 탄적 something tun이쪽으로 감성 가면 만나면 소시면은 동제송 대도 가사 저곰 잡오는 감성 생기는 때문에 그냥 좋아되어 저기 차는 거리 저런 때 대다 가다 또 치초는 거는 쉬운 거래 대다वर 대도 뉴모버지는 대도는 양기용을 대회는 뉴모버 쭉 받으면 뉴모버 쭉 줘서는 쉽지 참새고는 양도 거래 그 산적 새끼 하고도 대도 하고는 들이 가자 정말 라인 라인서는 나이를 받대요 말이 다진이요 말이 대들이 쉽지 참새 사바체베 바우나 대나가 벌써 속차 참새를 하는 정도로 가서 나이도 받다는 대회는 대랑 가와서는 랑두고 말이 문에 가라데 벌써 속차만 보고 사거리 뒤따라더니 사주고 눈에를 대나면서 도만 니마저 가라 맞아 무서워서 속에 투발하고 통고를 난 속차를 힘기지는 통고를 뺏기다 들 강자 찍어 줄들이 가르치는 들이 다들 사서는 사는 가르고나 당신 사서 걸로 전도를 들이 다들 퍼바냐면 이제는 다들 가자가를 내 사람들이 내 도와주지 랑 평감 사람들이 시켜요래 나와 초바들이 초바 촉들더니 이렇게 요래 뭔가 이 시간을 되네 미리 시간을 매래 대시험을 뒤에 바탕실 때는 타톡 노도 책망 고속을 말이 노도 책 가리지 나 삼바등 이제 산속섬 째라 포카 나가 속차 탐실 산속섬 째로래 대마트들이 세시 같이 신을 대삼실 째로요래 했잖아 잡지는 미니 다운을 되는 미니 저런 거를 똑바로 돌게 대로 랑을 여담 몽골된 조인 살람스 들지 대또니 그 하고는 나이메만 하고 들더니 다들 심지에서 이제 세병을 내지는데 무슨 속차 탐실 안 저래다 dem초를 쩔었어. 되게 다따선부터 마다 봐도 누네를 생각만 다 봐야면 내가 니딩 것만 로블 것만 때문에 들이 다긴 있었지. 때리면 뭐 봐. 뭐보다 재미있는 들이 찾아오나. 다들 이제 나한테 조금 해서나 다긴 님이 있어. 탄지 시고 뭐들이 레레저 살고 온 거 말이. 때들 따라니 누네 용어로 들이 라니 토만 적대요 그래서 로르 쳐박가리 다니 인지 장 너무 다 장하래 산속생지체 들이 산속생지 근데 산속생지 걔는 다요 말이 삼바체비께 그걸 다요 말이 들이 다진님을 들이 돈하고 대받는 레몬 돈하고 대받는 들이 참아 다진님이와 차음을 들이 문에 살이도 나그 공잡 샘 삼바들 이제 돈이 이제 손도 저거 따오면 되잖아. 속차 참아들이 문에 살이샤세나 들 맞이를 가리 밤이 그서나 땅 나가 사거든 맞고 사 들 나이스를 박차줘 들이들이 차과다 당와시 몰로 차 뭐냐면 당 차당 이제 눈체매 봐 박차줘 뭐래 데라비리 탑침부터 따침보는 거 별로 살고 막 내 바라티니 자동 총포스 집에다가 만나서 집에다가 이제 말이야 somebody 이게는 네 바닥지 대서 때 인정도 없어 대서 하고 때서 지는 들 돌아는 게나 딱딱 되는 거요래 저렇게 일만 진짜 망수에 들이랑 나도를 봐라 들이랑 도움하거나 다 같이 저쪽으로 대야고 신야고 그래서
So yesterday we stopped at that verse, Mr. Yidam deity. So we said, so the deity of the mandala, of the primordially perfected Yidam, the deity of the mandala. So we said that the deity is primordially established, perfected. So also we briefly mentioned yesterday the nature of our aggregate sense sources and the elements, and we spoke about the connection between the outer 5 elements that make up the universe, and on the inner level we have the 5 afflictive emotions, and secretly there are the 5 wisdoms. But we didn't speak in much detail about the aggregates yesterday. So whatever Vajrayana practice one engages in, whether it belongs to the new or the old tantric system, there are explanations on the aggregates, elements, and the sense sources in all the tantric teachings. So, for example, it is said that the aggregates are the Buddhas, the male dhyani Buddhas, and then the objects, the sense objects, are the female Buddhas, and the sense sources, and then the objects are the male and the female bodhisattvas, and then the brains and joints are the male and female wrathful ones, and so on. So now what this is I'm speaking about here is basically the body and the mind of one person. And Milarepa had said, I have the instruction where eating and drinking becomes a tok offering, a Gana Chakra offering. So how is that? It is normally when we offer a Gana Chakra offering, there are different kinds of guests, like the 4 kinds of guests that we invite to the food offering, such as the Dakas and Dakinis and the Buddhas and so forth. And so there are all these divinities, these deities that are making offerings too. But you might wonder, where really are all these deities? And sometimes people also ask about where these deities actually are. So what these deities actually are ultimately is that they are the pure quality of one's own mind. That is all those deities. And it is the love and the compassion arising within this pure aspect of the mind. That is the deity. So eating and drinking becomes a Gana Chakra offering. So when you eat food normally, you think that it's just me eating food. And that's because you perceive your body as this one, like, singular, solid, concrete thing. But actually, in reality, your body is composed of millions and billions of little life forms, of microorganisms. That was taught by the Buddha himself in the scriptures. And also nowadays, that is something that is discovered by various scientists. Scientists speak about different kinds of bacteria or microorganisms in our bodies. They say that there are some life forms or microorganisms that are beneficial, and then others are harmful. And so similarly in the teachings it says that there are some like life forms that bring happiness and some that bring suffering. For example, when you have like an upset stomach or so, and actually I myself had an ailment in my stomach before, and then that's when they told me it's because there is this kind of bug in there, this kind of bacteria in there that is causing that discomfort, this sickness. And so then they explained to me there is good bugs and bad bugs in your body. And these bugs or these microorganisms are extremely subtle, just like the smallest atomic particle, like of a water particle. And then when we look into the waters, for example, in the oceans, there are all kinds of different life forms in there too. There's microscopic life forms, and then there's very large life forms. But the essence of their mind, of their life force, is one and the same. They're really all the same. And so they all consist of aggregates, sensors, and the elements. And for the aggregates, we have said that there are 5 different aggregates. And normally it is explained that the actual nature of the 5 aggregates are the 5 Buddha families, the 5 Dhyani Buddhas. And they also correspond in the impure, immature state to the 5 afflictive emotions. So there are many explanations in the Tantras about the 5 aggregates in relation to the 5 afflictive emotions. But we can say in brief that as long as the mind is in an immature state, there are the 5 afflictive emotions, and these then manifest as the 6 realms of samsara. And then externally, there are the 5 elements, and in their true nature, they are the 5 female Buddhas, the 5 Dakinis. So the coming together of body and mind is what creates this human body. And this human body consists of not just one solid thing, but it is made up of many countless microorganisms, many different life forms. And ultimately still, it is said that all appearances are one's own mind. Everything is the reflection of one's own mind. So you think that this body, it's me, it's my body. But actually, because there's all these life forms in your body, if you give rise to bodhicitta, then all these hundreds and thousands of microorganisms in an instant also give rise to bodhicitta. And in an instant, that will cause them to become peaceful, and they will calm down and will not cause any trouble. So as a result of that, then you will experience physical and mental well-being, will be free of disease, and live a long life, just naturally. On the other hand, if the mind is afflicted, then that leads to conflict, whether externally or internally. Externally, afflictive emotions lead to conflict between countries, for example. And then in a more smaller scale, it leads to conflict between friends, like a boyfriend and a girlfriend. The reason why they don't get along, why there is disharmony, is because of afflictive emotions. And that is the immature state of mind. When it matures, then these afflictions mature into primordial wisdom. But why is it that the mind is in an immature state? It's because of fundamentally grasping at a duality of self and other. So we cling to the belief of a true existence of a self that does not actually exist. And when the mind matures, one realizes that self and other are not separate. You realize that even though we appear to be two, our mind is really one and the same. And because our minds are the same, if I develop love, then the other person will also feel happy. So again, all appearances are one's own mind. No matter how many appearances there may be in the universe, they all are one's own mind. Nothing is separate from one's own mind. Wherever space pervades, the mind pervades. And so when we know that and we pray and we practice, then a real benefit will come from that. So you begin, if you're a person who has understood this view and then meditates and gives rise to the 4 immeasurables, an actual benefit of meditation will arise from that. And I always mention this quotation from the Great Liberation Sutra that speaks about the benefit of meditation. So it says that it is of a greater benefit to meditate for a single session in a state of meditative concentration, then it is to liberate the lives of all sentient beings in the 3 realms of samsara. So a person who meditates brings benefit to all the sentient beings in the 3 realms. That person pervades them with their own feeling of bliss and happiness, and that will cause the ice block of those sentient beings to melt at least somewhat. However much these ice blocks will melt also depends on the level of that meditator's practice. So then, of course, again, afflictive emotions arise, and then again we meditate. But since all afflictive emotions are the same, so in other words, there's only really one afflictive emotion, if we liberate one of our own afflictive emotions, then that will make the weight of afflictions in all sentient beings become that much lighter. So this is the view to be understood. And if you understand this view, you understand the significance of giving rise to bodhicitta. And so then, when from within that state you gain the confidence of being the deity, in that moment then there is no concept of an I. There is no concept of self and other. So when immeasurable love and compassion for all sentient beings arises, then all those microorganisms, this bacteria and so on in your body, they all become that. They all develop these 4 immeasurables, and they all become the deity. And that is because there is, in your mind, there is no grasping at a self. And all of these life forms also are a reflection of your own mind. So the point to be understood is that there is not one solid me. So, for example, when you're eating food, actually it is all these microorganisms, these many life forms that are eating. And which is also why when we hold a Nyuna retreat, for example, where we don't eat for an entire day, and then the following day after not having eaten, when we conclude the practice in the early morning, we eat very light soup. And that is that we do actually having in mind all these countless microorganisms in our bodies. And so if you meditate, when you meditate and visualize and have this confidence that I am the Idam deity, then all the microorganisms in your body turn into the mandala deities. There are many explanations on that in, for example, the Vajrakilaya practice and also in the Chakra Samvara practice that explain the nature of the aggregates, elements, and the sense sources. For example, the nature of the eye consciousness and the ear consciousness and so forth. We have 6 consciousnesses. And then also it is explained that when the 5 afflictive emotions mature, they mature into the 5 wisdoms. So when you look at all of these explanations, there are so many words and it's hard to understand all of these words. But what is the ultimate meaning that we have to take from all these explanations? It is that if I give rise to bodhicitta, to love and compassion, then all these microorganisms in my body will also give rise to bodhicitta. And so, moreover, if I give rise to the confidence of being a deity, then they will all become that as well. So, for example, it is like your aggregates and elements and sense sources, your whole being is like an ocean. And if you add a medicinal substance into the water, then the entire water becomes pervaded by the medicine. But also if you pour some poison into it, then it all becomes pervaded by poison. And so now when you practice the Yidam, you think at once, I really am the Yidam Chakra Samvara. And you give rise to this awareness from the state of emptiness, knowing that there is no real me that actually exists. So the deity arises from a state of selfless, immeasurable compassion for all sentient beings. And then, if it arises from such a state, then all the microorganisms in your body become really the mandala deities. They become the Chakasamvara deities. And now there's all, now the scientists also speak about all these impure and pure life forms in our body. And all these impure, like bacteria and so on in the body, also appear that way, just like our body itself, due to the temporary obscuration, which is the obscuration of dualistic grasping. It is to believe in the concrete true existence of self and other. And so today, if I now engage in practice, I practice calm abiding, the mind calms down, there's no self-grasping, then that the self-grasping, the affliction in all these life forms will diminish. And so there is no need to think about each and every one of them and how they all become that. But that is just it spontaneously happens because that is already their primordial nature. So since beginningless time already, that is your and this life form's true nature. We are just obscured by adventitious stains, and those are the stains of dualistic grasping. And to clear it away, we first have to clear away, purify the grasping at a self. And that is cleared away through bodhicitta. First, the relative bodhicitta. When that arises, there is no thought of a self. When immeasurable love for others arises, there is no concept of a self. And then eventually, through habituating to this view of non-duality, you arrive at the ultimate truth and then actually realize non-duality and actually realize how you are the deity. And so now if you practice this, then you should gain the confidence that when I abide in the state of emptiness and compassion, then I am the deity, and therefore all the microorganisms in my body are also the deity. That is how it is when everything becomes matured. And as long as we are not matured, there are the afflictive emotions and those harmful life forms. And also again, when you're eating food, don't think it's just me eating food, because in this way, as we keep thinking I'm doing this and that, we continue to place these karmic imprints, these habitual imprints of me into our mind. And in this way, we reinforce the afflictive emotions of attachment and aversion. For example, then you become attached to a good tasting, delicious food, and you have an aversion against food that doesn't taste good. And so in this way, non-stop, continuously, we are placing imprints into our mind. So when you understand this, you really see the preciousness, the importance of practicing the deity. And so coming back to Milarepa's quote, so Milarepa said, so this is the instruction of eating and drinking, becoming a Gana Chakra soak offering. And then also he said, and then there is the instruction for dreaming to become the practice of luminosity. And so when you understand this, you see the power that can arise from the deity practice, the visualization of the deity. And all of this reasoning actually corresponds a lot to what present-day scientists are discussing with each other. Most scientists actually agree with that, and it's basically the same thing that we are saying. And so what scientists say, and then that really corresponds to the reasoning of the Buddha's teachings. And some people have maybe some doubt about this, that there is actually this connection. And for this reason, it would be really excellent to understand this point.
Bueno, ayer hablamos sobre el Yidam. La deidad del mandala se establece desde un principio perfecto. Mencionamos la naturaleza de nuestros agregados, nuestras sensaciones. Hablamos de los 5 elementos que constituyen el universo, de los 5 venenos y las 5 sabidurías. Hay explicaciones sobre los agregados y las fuentes sensoriales, tanto en los tantras viejos como en los tantras nuevos. Los agregados son una de las explicaciones es que los agregados son los budas masculinos y los objetos sensoriales son los budas femeninos. Así que de lo que hablamos ayer es de la mente y el cuerpo de una persona. Por ejemplo, Milarepa habla de la instrucción donde comer y beber se convierte en una ofrenda de Ganachakra. Por ejemplo, en el Ganachakra invitamos a 4 tipos diferentes de invitados. Adakas, dakinis, diferentes deidades, etc. ¿En dónde están estas deidades? Estas deidades son las cualidades puras de nuestra propia mente. Son el amor y compasión surgiendo en la mente. Entonces, comer y beber se convierte en una ofrenda de Ganachakra. Cuando comes, percibes un yo comiendo comida, pero en realidad tu cuerpo está compuesto de millones de microorganismos. Esto lo dijo el Buda y hoy lo hablan y lo confirman los científicos. Entonces, se dice que hay organismos que traen felicidad y organismos que traen el sufrimiento en nuestro cuerpo. Hay buenos organismos y malos organismos, y son sutiles. Y los más pequeños, por ejemplo, las más pequeñas partículas subatómicas del agua también contienen formas de vida. Pero por más pequeñas que sean, la esencia de su mente y su fuerza vital es la misma que de todos los seres. Tienen los 5 agregados y su naturaleza son los Dhyani Budas, las 5 familias búdicas. Y en su estado sin madurar, estas son las 5 aflicciones. Entonces, mientras la mente está en estado sin madurar, se manifiestan los 6 reinos del samsara. La reunión del cuerpo y la mente es lo que crea este cuerpo humano, que está hecho de innumerables formas de vida. Todas las apariencias son la reflexión de mi mente. Entonces, uno piensa normalmente, este cuerpo soy yo, es mi cuerpo. Pero si das origen a la bodhicitta, todos estos organismos también generan la bodhicitta. Como resultado tendrás un buen estado mental, libre de enfermedades, larga vida. Al contrario, si no tienes este estado de la bodhicitta, tienes un mal estado mental dominado por las aflicciones, entonces tendrás mala salud, tendrás una corta vida y tendrás conflictos. Entonces, ¿por qué hay disarmonía? La disarmonía se da por las emociones aflictivas. Cuando maduran estas emociones aflictivas, se convierten en sabiduría. La inmadurez se da por aferrarse a la creencia de la existencia de un yo, que en realidad no existe. Cuando madura, se realiza que este yo y los otros no existen. Si nuestras mentes son lo mismo y se desarrolla y se origina el amor, entonces esto surge en todos los organismos que están en nuestro cuerpo. Nada está separado de nuestra mente. Donde permea el espacio, permea la mente. Si entiendes esta visión y das origen a los 4 inconmensurables, entonces es de gran beneficio. Por ejemplo, se dice que es de mayor beneficio meditar por una sesión que liberar la vida de todos los seres sintientes en los 3 reinos de samsara. Debido a que todas las emociones aflictivas se reducen a algo mismo, si liberas una, entonces liberamos el peso de todos los seres sintientes. Si entiendes esta visión, entenderás la importancia de generar la bodhicitta. No habrá el concepto de yo y otros. Cuando surge el amor y la compasión para todos los seres, todos los organismos en tu cuerpo generan ese amor y la compasión y se convierten en la deidad. Todas estas formas de vida son un reflejo de la deidad. Entonces, cuando comes, todas estas formas de vida están comiendo. Por ejemplo, cuando hacemos el ñungue y cuando no comemos durante todo un día y al día siguiente comemos una sopa ligera, debemos de tener en cuenta todos estos microorganismos. Cuando meditas y tienes la confianza de ser la deidad, todos estos microorganismos se convierten en el mandala. Esto se explica en la práctica de Chakrasambhara. Tenemos 6 conciencias. Cuando las emociones aflictivas maduran, entonces se convierten en las sabidurías. El último significado de esto es, si yo doy origen a la bodhicitta, todos los organismos en mi cuerpo darán origen a la bodhicitta. Y si tengo la confianza en ser la deidad, también ellos tendrán la confianza en ser la deidad. Cuando practicas el yidam, realmente piensas yo soy el yidam. Y realmente ves que no existe un yo. Y surge la deidad desde una compasión para todos los seres. Y así los organismos en tu cuerpo se convierten en deidades del mandala. Ahora, si practicamos la calma mental y no hay aferramiento al yo, lo mismo sucede en todas estas formas de vida. Entonces, sucede espontáneamente porque esa es su verdadera naturaleza. Hay que purificar el apego al yo por medio de la bodhicitta relativa. Cuando surge el amor inmensurable por otros, entonces no existe el yo. Así uno llega a la verdad última y se da cuenta que uno es la deidad. Practica y ten la confianza de que cuando moras en el estado de vacuidad y compasión, yo soy la deidad y todos los organismos en mi cuerpo son la deidad. Cuando comas, no piensas que soy yo comiendo, sino entonces estarás formando estas huellas kármicas de un yo y reforzando las emociones de apego, por ejemplo, a la comida que sabe bien o aversión a la comida que sabe mal. Milarepa dice, esta es la instrucción de comer y beber, que se convierte en una ofrenda de Ganachakra. También habla de la práctica de soñar para volverse la luminosidad. Hoy en día los científicos están de acuerdo y están confirmando todos estos razonamientos de las enseñanzas de los Budas.
오, 다 septi타는 문이 피고다 삼hin지 고도. 고도 삼hin지 오늘 고도 이제 상제린 차롱도 그래. 차롱도 저거는 니마고 그래. 니마고는 니마다고 다 삼hin지. 다 소소 니지 너가마도 딱 쨌다면 니지 문이 피고 그래. 오, 좋아요 말. 니지 맞지라다. 대답은 못 봤어. 못 배줘 봤어. 그랬더니다 이제 뭐고 프로그램 잡아놔서 짬로 샘지 솔데 세나양 먹을 힘이 뜨네 마치 책도 먼저 주주 기존은 세로 담을 주토 마케라지 다시 여름 봐삼체나 저 마부를 패기면 다다다다랑 팽이 빈도 총고요래 대다오저 땡이서 일하지고마 그래 잡고 보내지 봤다부터 레저트 오브더지 생고만 줘봐 생고만 좀 르바종 송사 르바종을 가래 포탐지 유리티네즈 사마들 니지 쇼크는 포탐지 티네즈는 조성스 모탐지 유리 삼니지시나 나가 단디지 디디 로만 조성스 탐지 샤르 조성스 이제 그것도 샤르만 내가 차런데 조성스네 그래서다 나와 샤디 오 샤디 강 동거리디 진짜 빠마다 나가 자다고 들었더니 그러다 나시 탐지 다 정한나는 조성스 대리 조반지 뒤에서 강의에서는 대다와 하고서 전했더니 파마타 예당 조독선 파마타 예당 조독선 찍도 똑고 남절라 인피제 조도 사자매지 나다도 겁지나 신지 타바바 찍자요 말이야 왜 말이야 참아더니 파마 예당 조독선 뭐 찍어야지 참아살 줬으나 그 참아 예당 살 줘도 그래 대다와 하고 호토 단지 매나 그것도 사발라래지. 자로셔서 타마쳐야 상수는 다 나시 딱바랑 장 이제 다 마다 바측장만 독서 노를 문에서 무속세. 다 되는 것이 신진념이 좀만 뭐 됐던 동자 능지 여름이 매드 동문이 스님 도와줘. 송송 때라서 요 말이지. 내가 로버를 준 때도 차송스 이 동시바당 들이 동시바라 들이대는 때 냠들이 사바당 내지게 봐. 저랑 당고 사바당 지랑 지. 이 사바당 이제 그 생기 류종 류생제들이 다 되는 이제는 고소를 사바당 이제 레다 들이다 고소 상지리요 봐. 그랬더니 이제 그때들이 다 되었고요. 대다 이제 하고서는 들이다 들이 뭔가 찾았다고 공부하더니 참 제일 안 나와라 타고나 대나 녀마간 동바지들 말린 책이 들이 장 페퍼감네 들이 독자 돌아 졸더니 이 책이지 송말에 저래 난다 렉섬랑아 추궁안 거땅지 시로만 잠레바 사상 남들 때문에 예미 독자들을 이렇게요. 그래서 말린 책이 장 페퍼 독자 돌아 그래서 대다 남들과 가서 담지 당 동시 대양설랑 대양설랑들이 따라들어라나 대다로 잡아톱 라마톱고요래 대다를 하고들이 마님마데 돈나 주제치 뭐 이제 샤트가 마트가 공소도 배라 또 사바데 뒤쪽에서 정디 마님마 양잡라 그래 양잡 가르쳐 양이 양도 그걸 못하게 주탐지 뭐들이 양이 양도 사바래 되게 답주고 마야 잡송 뜻이어야지
배단 수카레 배 소멸 반보디 년바디
뭐 다와 간생다고 공부하지 다와까면 찾아매요라 무조건 말이지 니바데 나콜면 건너 공부래 나콜면 건너 사고고는 다와 간생다고 공부 니바 들이 때에서는 다 감이 레코드다 다 형이마 때에서 코롱 줘래 코롱들 감이 레코드다고 공부 니바니 바지 들이 때 한테 짠 조금 코롱들이 잡부 포냥지 봤다고 공부하더니 접아서 들이 잡부 포냥지 봤더니 생고만 주바다 생고만 하더니 동양들 로고 했지 아서 들이 보마 상식다고 공부하대 드라마 장산을 또 잡자는데 드라마 차와서 너무 돌 처만 살아야지 나와서 당에 또 물론 특징이 숨바 뒤책에 근데 나시 사고를 고아치서 도지되고 처만 살이 동문의 생기에서 무섭죠 뒤 고아차는 거라 동장 형제 여러분 매제오나 대 마토바 가사이나 가리시 다들 같이 꼬마레시 심지 통주들이 동장 형제 여러분 매제는 가리래 제통 대시에 요래시 동시에 가다는 생긴 탑지 이제 사제 좀 되게 사제에 타제도 가시 따뜻한 양처럼 따뜻하래시 동문에 생기 찍도면 없어 따뜻한 코와 동쪽들 동세에서 잠이라가 아주 쏘면 코와 동쪽 집안에 또 마음 벌어진 코와도 찾으러 돼 말이지 코와 제일 매화하고 그랬더니 코와 동쪽 공부하되 대에서 막을 때 송도 잠이라가 코와 동쪽 집안에 때에서 코와 동쪽 끼찍기가 되는 문이 끼찍기를 세다지 되지 동문이 코와 문에 매화 대동고 다 하고서 내가 들은 가사면 뭐 되고 많이만 되고래 가르들다 진짜 일하기를 되고래 대타도 뛰고 가도 좀 갑질 시작이오래 갑질 고브라나 시에 돈스는 내가送오래
So we spoke about yesterday mainly about the new tantric system. And so where we spoke about the connection between these sets of four, like the four kinds of attachment and the four levels of joy and the four yogas and the four empowerments and so forth. And so today I'm going to speak more about the Nyingma, the old tantric system of the Vajrayana. So there is a slight difference as in the old tantric system is somewhat easier to practice. It is more difficult to practice the new tantric system. It's much more complex, especially if one is not very intelligent, has not much wisdom. So I'll tell one story first. So in the old days, when Lord Atisha visited Tibet, he had the Lotsawa Rinchen Sangpo, the translator Rinchen Sangpo, there, who was from Tibet, to attend him. And so Atisha, when he came to Tibet, he first wanted to know, he asked the Lotsawa, so like what kind of Dharma do you have in Tibet, and what kind of tenet systems and philosophical schools and so on, what kind of practices do you have in Tibet? And then the Lotsawa Rinchen Sangpo responded. So then he explained in much detail. So we have the new tantric system, and then within that we have the 4 classes of tantra and so forth. And then he explained each of these different divisions and classes of tantra. And so then Atisha says, well, if there is a great scholar in Tibet like yourself, then there's really no need for me to come here, actually. But I have one more question. And then the Lotsawa said, so what is it? And so Atisha said, so how do you practice all of these different classes of tantra and so on? And so then the Lotsawa said, well, you have to practice each of them separately. There's a distinct way of practicing them all. And so then Atisha said, oh, maybe it's good that I came to Tibet. Because actually, all of these different classes of tantra need to be brought into a single essence. So one needs to know how to skillfully practice the essence of all of them. So one needs to be able to condense all of these different practices. And so how can we do that? How to do that is actually according to the old tantric system. And this is what Guru Rinpoche had done. He took the newest bread of which is called the new tantric system, and he condensed them into their essence. So they become actually convenient to practice. And so in the old tantric system, we find the Guru Rinpoche put these various classes of tantras and practices together into the form of the 4 branches of approach and accomplishment. And he did that on the basis of his own personal experience. So he had gained the personal experience also of the new tantric practices. For example, when he was enduring many hardships in the 8 charnel grounds and so forth, where he accomplished the 8 rugas, or the 8 logos, and so forth, and many other places. And then he realized how to bring all these deities and mantras into a single one, into a single essence. And that then was called the 4 branches of approach and accomplishment. So the first branch is called the approach, which is like an unmoving kind of static, like a moon disk that is luminous. So first, when you practice the approach, you bring to mind, for example, the mantra garland, and so now in the new tantric system there are like many other divisions, such as the view and so forth. So there's many different divisions, and so Guru Rinpoche condensed them into this kind of convenient way. So anyways, so for one person to practice in a practical way. So now when we practice the approach stage, you practice any Yidam deity, and you recite that Yidam deity's mantra. And for the mantra, you visualize the mantra garland. And the essence of the mantra recitation is the mental state of samadhi, meditative concentration, where the mind is focused. So then Guru Rinpoche also explained the essence of deity yoga, or the visualization and mantra recitation, in terms of the 4 nails which are related, which are applied during the practice of the 4 branches of approach and accomplishment. And so the main aspect, the main quality of those 4 branches is that one only focuses on visualization. That is the main part. So now, again, in the first step of the approach, you visualize the mantra garland. very vivid and very clear, like a moon disk, surrounded by static, a star garland. And so then you visualize that very clearly until you are able to have that appear in your mind vividly in visibility. So then you have accomplished the approach. Then after that, you move on to the close approach, the second stage. And so at the second stage, and so first you have had this like static, unmoving garland. Then the second stage becomes like the star garland that begins to move slowly. And so here again you are focused on the visualization, and there are different levels of mantra too. There is the essence mantra and the quintessence mantras and so forth. And so you begin to first slowly turn or kind of rotate that mantra garland. So once it is stable, it begins to rotate slowly, and just like a prayer wheel. And then you see how the mind is connected to it. So the mind follows the rotation. So the mind goes along with the rotation of the mantra garland. And so, for example, if I have a prayer wheel that isn't moving, then the mind is also not really there. But when I'm turning the wheel, then the mind kind of follows it and keeps going around together with the wheel. And so similarly, as you begin to rotate the mantra garland, the mind follows it. So the mind is focused on the rotation. The mind becomes that rotation. Actually, Rinpoche said, I've seen in the West there is this kind of game, how you call it, where you kind of you spin it and then it keeps turning, right? There's this kind of toy. And actually, I've observed that a cat actually can really focus on that. The cat just is completely mesmerized by that toy, that spinning toy, and completely undistracted and just like staring at that spinning toy. And so the reason why the cat's doing that, actually it's only the cats who do that, no other animals can do that. But the reason why the cat is doing that is because it thinks that that spinning toy is another animal, is a prey. So the cat really wants to kill that spinning toy. And so it's stalking the toy and just is mesmerized by it and focuses single-pointedly. So basically that's just how the mind becomes when we focus on the rotation of the mantra garland that turns continuously, starting first to turn very slowly, and then once you have habituated to that, then eventually it accelerates, and in the end it turns so fast that you can no longer perceive it visually. It is just like the engine in an airplane, wing. I've seen that myself, and I thought that's a great example, because first you can see the wheel and then of the engine of the airplane, and then when it spins so fast you can no longer actually see the wheel, but you can hear the sound. So the wheel gives off a natural sound, and it begins with this humming sound, and then it accelerates, and then all you see, you see nothing, but you just hear this humming, this accelerated kind of increasingly louder humming of the airplane engine. And so that is actually very similar to the natural sound of the mantra. When the mantra begins to spin fast, then you can no longer see it, but it emits a natural sound, just like the engine in an airplane. So this is what you habituate to at the second stage. And so then also, now we've said we develop samadhi, and so then this samadhi then leads to the third step, which is the accomplishment. And so it is based on the samadhi of love. So it is built on bodhicitta. And then, so you have visualized this mantra garland that's spinning very fast. And then out of your samadhi of love, then arise from this, because of your samadhi of love causes light rays to be sent forth from the spinning mantra garland. So then light rays are sent forth and are gathered back. And this is similar to a king dispatching his messengers. So again, to summarize, in the first step, you visualize the mantra garland, unmoving. In the second step, the close approach, the first is approach, then in a close approach, you begin to slowly rotate the garland until it accelerates very fast. And then in the third step, which is the accomplishment, then from this fast rotation, light rays are sent forth and gathered back. And so when these light rays are sent forth, they first pervade all the higher beings, and these light rays of love then become rays of devotion, and these then make offerings to all the Buddhas, the higher beings abiding in the Pure Lands. So then you focus on that single-pointedly. And then the light rays gather back the great compassion of all these Buddhas, and then again are sent out to reach all sentient beings. And then the light rays become light rays of immeasurable love. So here then you should bring to mind the suffering of all sentient beings and think that all sentient beings have been my parents. So love arises for them, and then from love arises compassion. A compassionate person, for example, if a person has compassion and they hear that fire, for example, has broken out in some other distant place, some city, when they hear about that, immediately it affects them, and the suffering comes to them. And that is a sign of their compassion. Whereas other people, no matter of how much suffering of sentient beings they hear, they could care less. They don't really they don't feel anything special when they hear about all kind of things happening in the world. And that is because they consider themselves as most important and therefore are unable to give rise to compassion. And if there is no compassion, then also wisdom cannot arise. So wisdom arises out of compassion. For example, if a mother loves her child, because a mother loves her child, the milk naturally flows from her breasts without any effort involved. So you should really analyze that, think about the benefits of cultivating love. And so now coming back to the light rays, when these rays of love are directed to the higher beings, then they become an offering. And when directed to the lower beings, they become those light rays of bodhicitta that purify obscurations. So first, when these light rays touch upon the Buddhas, make offerings, the light rays then gather back the great love of all the Buddhas. And then the power of that great love is then sent to all sentient beings. And what is it that sentient beings really need? Sentient beings really need love. Why do they suffer? The root of their suffering is self-grasping. And then you will finally understand that when I give rise to love, that naturally eliminates the cause of their suffering, the root of their suffering. So this is how you eliminate their suffering. And when you really understand this, you can see that you will gain confidence that I can actually bring great benefit to sentient beings. I need to love them. And then finally, you begin to melt the ice block of sentient beings. To melt an ice block, you need sun. And love and compassion is like the sun. So you should really reflect on that. If you reflect on that and really understand, then the benefit that will come from that is certain. It's unfailing. So right now, we do want to bring about this benefit, but it's more of an aspiration. And Unchanging Kongtrul also has said in Calling the Guru from Afar, that even though we take refuge and we cultivate, we arouse the mind of bodhicitta and so forth, the words that we utter are mere words of aspirations. And aspirations are excellent, but they do not actually accomplish a great purpose of beings. So we do have an aspiration toward virtue and toward benefit beings, and if it's just like an aspiration, then there might be some minor, like momentary benefit from that, but it's a very small benefit compared to what actually can be accomplished. So again, the light rays, which is the third step, the accomplishment, is like the king dispatching his messengers and dispatching the light rays. First we make offerings to the higher beings, and then we purify the obscurations of the sentient beings with compassion. And so then what happens when their obscurations are purified? Then they all develop love and compassion. And all the males, for example, the men who cultivate love and compassion then become Chenrezig, and all the females that develop love and compassion become Tara, as all the self-grasping is melting away. So all beings then become the deity. Think in this way when you send forth the light rays. Think that now all the ice blocks have been melted and all beings are the deity, all appearance is the deity. So that is the third step of sending forth the light rays and gathering them back. So at the end of that, you meditate on the entire universe and all beings as a pure land and the deities. Also, Jigten Sumgön had said that, so when one understands all of this, that he said, I am a yogin who has realized that my parents, the Yidam, and the 6 classes of beings are one. And in this way, the altruistic benefit of others is accomplished effortlessly. So actually, what the Vajrayana also teaches is that ultimately there are no ordinary sentient beings, so no real sentient beings actually exist. The 6 classes of beings are really the Yidam deity. It is just that now they are obscured by self-grasping, but the moment that self-grasping is cleared away, they all really are the deity. When all the ice blocks have melted, then everything is pure in its natural state. Then everything that appears and exists is a vast expanse, an infinite expanse of purity. And in reality, there is nothing whatsoever that is impure. Everything is pure by nature. There are many people who practice Yamantaka, and in the Yamantaka practice it says ultimately no real object of compassion exists. So the 3 lower realms, the 6 realms of samsara and so forth, do not inherently exist. They are only a temporary obscuration. So some practitioners really understand that. And because of that, then they are able to develop immeasurable love and compassion. So there are no real sentient beings. And so because of that, when you understand that, a practitioner who knows that, the reason why they can develop love and compassion then, although there is no real object of compassion, is because they understand that all sentient beings can attain enlightenment. They have the potential to attain enlightenment. And that gives them the confidence of benefiting them, because then they can be benefited. All of this is just a temporary obscuration. And so this is how you can gain certainty in the practice instead of developing many doubts. So if you understand that, then you will see that everything is the deity, everyone is the deity. As it is said, all appearances are the deity, all sounds are the mantra, all thoughts are the dharmakaya. In fact, in the old days, there was the master Minling Chichen, who, when he passed away, he was actually sitting on his throne, and he said these 4-liner, which is 4 lines in Tibetan, and then he passed away. And so what he said is that appearances are the deity, sounds are the mantra, and thoughts are the play of primordial wisdom. I'm a yogin who whose awareness abides indivisible from these three kind of vajras. And having said this, then he passed away in that moment. So that is, for example, a sign of someone who has attained complete accomplishment. And so when one understands that and practices that in this way, one will also attain such accomplishment and like freedom of the mind. So again, we have the old and the new tantric system. In the new tantric system, we have four classes of tantra, and then in the old tantric system, the four branches of approach and accomplishment, and that condenses the four classes all into one mantra and one deity. And also, actually, in the Jigong Kagyu, we have the Dzogchen teachings, and the Jigong teachings are the Yangzab teachings, and Yangzab means literally utterly profound, like profundity upon profundity, in other words. So as Guru Rinpoche, for example, had again and again condensed the very essence of the Dharma until it was condensed in its most refined, most profound essence. And so yang means again, so again profound, in other words, literally. So again and again made more and more profound or condensed into the essence. So these are the first three steps. And so then the last one is the great accomplishment, and that is like the humming of a disturbed beehive. So when you disturb a beehive, then you just hear the humming of many bees all over. But more on that later. And so now to kind of bring together all of these quotations we have now mentioned, they all are connected. So we have had the quote, the statement, kind of the verse that was spoken by Minling Chikchen before he passed away. And then yesterday we mentioned a quote by Dhammaraja, the Jigong master, who said, if you realize that all appearance and existence is the deity, and then in the Yamantaka we have said that no real object of compassion exists. So all beings are the deity. There are no real sentient beings. But we have not realized that. And so that is why many doubts often arise in people's minds, and they think that, how can you say that there are no sentient beings, it's all empty, but then we can see sentient beings everywhere. So how come no object of compassion exists? So this doubt may arise. But if you really understand the meaning, then you will instantly think that, well, the Buddha had already determined that. And when the Buddha said, all beings are actually Buddhas. And meaning that whoever engages in practice has the potential to become just that. And so that is our true ultimate nature. And in that sense, no real sentient being exists. No real samsara exists ultimately. Also, Jagme Raga Asya had said that now we always say that in the future may there be an end to samsara, but he said that no, it's not in the future. Already now, samsara does not exist inherently, and he said that this is called the enlightened intent of steering samsara from its depths, or emptying samsara, and that is accomplished in an instant, as it is said. In an instant, one is a Buddha, and in an instant, a sentient being. That shows that no real samsara exists ultimately. So in any case, Guru Rinpoche had condensed the new tantric system into the four branches of approach and accomplishment of the old tantric system, and also explained that in many different ways, such as in the teachings of the 8 logos or the 8 tarukas and so forth.
Bueno, Ayer hablamos de los nuevos sistemas tántricos. Hablamos de las conexiones de los grupos de 4, los 4 apegos, los 4 yogas. Entonces, hoy vamos a tratar de hablar un poco más sobre el viejo sistema tántrico, el sistema Nyingma. Según Rinpoche, es más práctico, más fácil de practicar. El nuevo sistema es muy difícil, sobre todo, si uno no es inteligente. Entonces, en los viejos días, Atisha visitó el Tíbet y quien lo recibió fue el Lotsawa Rinchen Sampo. Entonces, Atisha le preguntó, Atisha venía desde la India, que era un gran sabio en la India, entonces el rey lo mandó traer. Y Atisha le pregunta a Rinchen Sampo, ¿qué prácticas y sistemas tiene? Entonces, Rinchen Sampo le contestó, tenemos el nuevo sistema tántrico, las 4 clases de tantra, y él explicó estas divisiones. Entonces, Atisha le contestó, si hay un gran escolar como tú en Tibet, entonces no hay la necesidad de alguien como yo. Entonces Atisha le preguntó, ¿pero cómo practican todo esto? La contestación fue, se practican separadamente. Entonces Atisha le contestó, tal vez sea bueno que haya venido a Tibet. Todas estas clases de tantra deben de practicarse, condensarse en una sola, no por separado. Entonces, de acuerdo al viejo sistema, Guru Rinpoche fue lo que hizo, condensar el nuevo sistema tántrico y lo hizo conveniente para la práctica. Guru Rinpoche desarrolló las 4 ramas de acercamiento y logro. Él tenía la experiencia de las nuevas prácticas tántricas. Por ejemplo, cuando realizó los 8 gerutas, él llegó a la realización de cómo consolidar todo esto. Entonces, estas 4 ramas de acercamiento y consecución se dividen. La primera sería el acercamiento. El acercamiento es cuando se practica una deidad, se visualiza la guirnalda del mantra, se visualiza vívida como un disco de luna, hasta que aparece en tu mente, vívida y con estabilidad. Y la esencia de recitación del mantra es la concentración, el samadhi. Aquí también se habla de la esencia del yoga de la deidad, los 4 clavos o 4 estacas. Su aspecto principal de las 4 ramas es enfocarse en la visualización. Ahora, el segundo paso o rama sería el acercamiento más cercano, el mantra. El mantra se mueve, te concentras en el movimiento. Primero empieza a moverse lentamente, como un molino de plegarias, y ves como tu mente está conectada y sigue la rotación de la guirnalda del mantra. Si yo giro un molino de plegarias, la mente se enfoca y se convierte en la rotación. Por ejemplo, en el oeste, dice Rinpoche que en el oeste ha visto un juego en el cual giras este juguete, y él ha visto como un gato se asombra por este juguete y lo sigue sin distracción. Dice que solo ha observado esto de los gatos, pero ¿por qué razón los gatos siguen este juguete sin distracción? Lo hacen porque los gatos piensan que este juguete es otro animal, que es una presa, y por eso el gato lo acecha con una atención unipuntual. Entonces, así es como la mente se vuelve y nos enfocamos en el giro de la guirnalda del mantra. Al final, esta guirnalda del mantra gira tan rápido que no se puede percibir visualmente. Es como la turbina de un avión, que al principio se puede observar la rueda, pero a medida que va acelerando, de repente ya no alcanzamos a distinguir y ya lo único que se escucha es el sonido, el hum, acelerado y fuerte. Esto es similar al sonido natural del mantra. Cuando gira muy rápido, no lo ves, pero emite un sonido. Así, uno se habitúa en la segunda etapa. Se desarrolla el samadhi y esto nos lleva a la cuarta rama o etapa. Esta cuarta etapa es la etapa de la consecución, la etapa del logro. Aquí es cuando el samadhi del amor causa que los rayos emanen desde la guirnalda del mantra y después retornan. Esto es igual a un rey mandando a sus mensajeros. Los rayos de devoción que hacen ofrendas a todos los budas en las tierras puras. Después, la compasión de todos estos budas regresa en los rayos de amor, inconmensurable hacia todos los seres. Uno debe reflexionar que todos los seres han sido mis padres y mis madres. Entonces, si alguien tiene compasión y escucha que hay un incendio, por ejemplo, inmediatamente le afecta y sufre, y es una muestra de su compasión. Sin embargo, otras personas se pueden enterar de este incendio y no les importa porque se consideran ellos lo más importante.
Secret mantra, Vajrayana speaks about, when it speaks about the qualities of the mantra, there is a teaching on the 9 benefits and the powers of mantra. And just to mention a few of them, so the mantra, one benefit of the mantra is that it purifies obscurations. And so, for example, when you recite the 100-syllable Vajrasattva mantra, we purify obscurations. But how do we actually purify obscurations? So the obscuration that is to be purified is the dualistic, grasping itself and other. Because of dualistic grasping, we develop the 6 afflictive emotions, and then due to various conditions, we accumulate different karma. And how do we purify these obscurations? For example, through the 4 powers of the Vajrasattva practice, and then the mantra recitation. And so that's the first power. The mantra has the power to purify obscurations. The second power is the power, or second benefit is the mantra also is like a blessing. So Buddha nature, when the obscurations have been purified, that cover Buddha nature, then one's sight, one's mind becomes clear. It's just like when you're wiping your glasses, then you can see clearly. So when all the obscurations have been purified, there is no more grasping ultimately at self and other. And so regarding the 4 powers whereby we purify the obscurations, the most important one is the power of regret or remorse. And so in this way, then having purified obscurations and then having received blessings, one's mind having been blessed by the mantra, then as a result, Buddha nature becomes increasingly clear. Then the third benefit is the mantra also represents the deity. For example, if you say a mantra, the Mani mantra, like Om Mani Padme Hum, every time you say the mantra, you create, well, one form of Chenrezig is created. And so then what is accomplished through the Chenrezig Mani recitation, for example? So first you recite the mantra with the 3 kinds of faith, the clear faith, the trusting faith, and the longing faith. And then you recite Om Mani Padme Hum repeatedly, and this faith then becomes an offering. In this way, the mantra turns into an offering to the higher beings, and then it turns into love for all sentient beings. For example, so when you develop love, then when you recite Om Mani Padme Hum and love arises, the mind of Chenrezig, then the higher beings, they know about that with their omniscient mind. And because they love all beings like their only child, you then connect to their love. Because ultimately the basis of our mind is one and the same. Even though it is one and the same temporarily, there seems to be a separation, just like between ice and water. But in this way, we accomplish the deity, and the way it is accomplished is like the miraculous birth instantaneously. So now we have had the benefit of the purification of obscurations, blessing, and being the deity. Then the fourth benefit is that the mantra also becomes an offering. So the mantra is sent forth into the Pure Lands of the 10 directions and then makes offerings there. For example, if you're spinning a prayer wheel, then with each rotation, the number of mantras contained in the prayer wheel is sent out to the Pure Lands to make offerings there. For example, nowadays, most wheels are filled with the Mani mantra, Chinrezig's mantra, and the Tara mantra. And however many mantras there are in the wheel, they all are sent out with each rotation into the Pure Lands of the 10 directions and the 3 times, and they can make offerings there. That's another power of the mantra. They are able to make offerings to all the Buddhas abiding in the Pure Lands. For example, if the prayer wheel would be filled with 1 million mantras, then with each rotation, 1 million mantras would go out, or Chinrezigs and deities would go out, and then make offerings in all these Pure Lands. And then again, they are sent out to purify the obscurations of all sentient beings. So in this way, the benefit of sentient beings is accomplished through the mantra garland. And so again, how are sentient beings purified? The fault that makes them be a sentient being is self-grasping. And the mantra garland is a representation of the deity, and the deity is an embodiment of love and compassion. So, for example, in the supplication to Tara that speaks about the benefits of Tara practice, it mentions, for example, that all those who practice Tara or recite the mantra will have all their wishes fulfilled. For example, those who wish to acquire wealth will have wealth, those who wish to have a companion will have a companion, those who wish to have a child will have a child, and so forth. And so in this way, she manifests in whichever way necessary to clear away the suffering of all sentient beings in the 6 realms of samsara. So that is the 4th point. And then the 5th benefit is that the mantra also represents the siddhi, which is the accomplishment. So you can visualize whichever deity you're practicing, and then you habituate to this deity and this mantra garland over and over again until it becomes very clear. And then through the power of your your visualization, the mind becomes very clear and purified. And so now when it comes to accomplishing the deity now, actually, often we speak about a certain number of mantras to be accumulated. There's a certain number to each mantra, a certain few hundred thousands of times and so on of recitations. And then many people just focus on completing the mantra count. But actually, the number of mantras accumulated is not what's most important. What's most important is the single pointed, undistracted visualization. Focus on the practice, because that is what will purify the obscurations in the mind. So in order to know when you have accomplished a deity, that's what you have to look at. How many of my obscurations have I purified? And when they're all purified, then that's a sign of having accomplished a deity. And so in terms of time, that is accomplished depending on the practitioner. Some accomplish it within a day, within weeks, within months or years. But it is not dependent on the actual mantra count that is completed. So we should not consider that as kind of our measure of accomplishing the deity. Like you accumulate that many mantras and you accomplish the deity. This is not how actually the deity is accomplished. There are some individuals who even may accomplish the deity within just one day. So you have to see for yourself by looking at your own experience, your own state of mind, and how your mind becomes free of the grasping at true concrete existence, and also our concepts and our ideas around the all various appearances. and you look at your experience of having unified emptiness with compassion. And so within that state of emptiness, then you should have realized the non-duality of self and other, and that all appearance of separation of self and other is just a temporary karmic imprint, a temporary arising. And so once you have actually realized that view of emptiness and compassion, then there is no more fixation, no more thought that anything at all possesses any true existence, including your own concept structures. And everything appears as the deity. And so that is actually also the fifth benefit of the siddhi, the attainment. So there are these 9 benefits, of which I just mentioned 5, also because I don't remember all of them, but these 5 are actually the most important ones. Also, in terms of another benefit of the mantra garland actually is that if it's difficult to always visualize the mantra garland, you can also spin a prayer wheel, which has the same benefits. And that's also why many prayer wheels are being fabricated nowadays. And like the handheld prayer wheels or the other larger prayer wheels that are set up at the entrances of different monasteries or dharma centers and so on. And the reason why the monasteries set up these large prayer wheels there is because it is said that anyone who sees, hears of, remembers, or comes into contact with it will purify their obscurations. So there's many great benefits. And so that's why dharma centers and also monasteries have these large prayer wheels set up at their entrances. And then also it can be a great accumulation of the one who produces those prayer wheels, a great accumulation of merit. And of course, if they would only think about their own business and try to get out of it as much as possible, then of course it wouldn't be a meritorious activity. And anything that we do with this kind of intention loses its power, and the strength of merit really is diminished. So this quote we mentioned yesterday also relates to here. We said that that one with merit, anyone who accomplishes a purpose with merit, is like a shining sun, and then conversely, anyone who tries to accomplish a purpose with effort only is like the flame of a butter lamp that will be extinguished. So we can not accomplish everything just with effort, but accomplishment actually happens because of the merit that we have accumulated. So if that merit is not present, then even if we make an effort, then things will not be accomplished. If one has the merit, on the other hand, then things just happen naturally. One is just like the sun. Things fall into place naturally. There are many people like that in the world. So in any case, if it is difficult to always visualize the mantra garland, you can also spin a small handheld prayer wheel. And that is also a way to accumulate the cause of merit continuously. And it is a cause of benefit and happiness. So whatever is a cause of benefit and happiness is what we call merit. And merit, in brief, is a mind of love. And if you have that, then any activity will become accomplished. So if you know about these benefits, these 9 or less benefits, then you will really see the significance, the benefit of spinning a prayer wheel. And that's also why most centers and monasteries have set them up, because these prayer wheels are so beneficial. Thank you, and please take a break for 20 minutes.
Bueno, a continuación,
and participants of our today's Zoom event, we have a very important announcement that all Zoom details will be same for the last day of His Eminence Garchen Rinpoche's teachings. So tomorrow you can use same link that was already sent you.
Ok, en lo que dijo ahorita Seba.
For 30 minutes, and then there will be second part, and we will continue in this Zoom.
Ok, lo que dijo ahorita Seba, primero les digo los anuncios, que para todos los datos del Zoom serán los mismos para las enseñanzas de mañana. Y que ahorita a continuación, en cuanto acabe esta última traducción, tenemos un descanso de 20 minutos. Bueno.
Recording stopped.
Sorry, please, yes, the break is not 30 minutes, but only 20 minutes.
Bueno, esto último que dijo Rinpoche, dijo que...
Please pay attention to it.
Ok, dijo que el mantrayana secreto se enseñan los 9 beneficios o poderes del mantra. El beneficio del mantra es el purificar los oscurecimientos. Como lo hacemos, los oscurecimientos se purifican por medio de purificar el aferramiento dualista al yo y al otro. Por ejemplo, purificamos esto por los 9 poderes de la práctica de Vajrasattva. Entonces, ¿cuál sería el segundo poder? El segundo poder es que el mantra es como una bendición. La naturaleza búdica, la mente, se vuelve clara como cuando limpias tus lentes y puedes ver claramente. No hay apego al yo. Los 4 poderes para purificar serían el poder de los 4 poderes para purificar. El más importante es el poder del arrepentimiento. Entonces, el segundo poder del mantra, el recibir la bendición. Entonces, por medio de esta bendición, la naturaleza búdica se vuelve clara. Entonces, tercer beneficio del mantra. El mantra representa la deidad. Por ejemplo, cuando nosotros decimos un mantra de Om Mani Padme Hum, entonces cada vez que decimos un mantra Om Mani, se forma una emanación de Chandrasi que es creada. Entonces lo que se consigue es que si recitas el mantra con fe clara, la fe que confía y la fe que anhela, entonces uno recita el Om Mani y el mantra se convierte en una ofrenda a los seres superiores y después regresa hacia todos los seres sintientes y se convierte en amor bondadoso. Esto porque los Budas y Bodhisattvas aman a todos los seres y por medio de este mantra nos conectamos a este océano de amor. Ahora, el cuarto beneficio es que el mantra se convierte en una ofrenda. Se manda a las tierras puras de las 10 direcciones. Por ejemplo, aquí dice Rinpoche, el ejemplo de los molinos de oraciones. Estos molinos normalmente tienen millones de mantras. Entonces, cada vez que haces un giro de este molino de oraciones, estás haciendo ofrendas a los 10 lugares. Si un molino tiene 1.000.000 de mantras, cada giro son 1.000.000 de deidades haciendo ofrendas. Entonces, el beneficio de los seres que se consigue por la guirnalda del mantra, que es una representación de la deidad. Entonces, todos los que recitan, por ejemplo, todos los que recitan el mantra de Tara, se dice que tendrán sus deseos satisfechos. Ahora, el quinto beneficio de los mantras es el beneficio del mantra que representa el siddhi, el logro. Entonces se visualiza la deidad y el mantra hasta que esto se vuelve claro. Por medio del enfoque se vuelve claro y purifica. Entonces hablamos de un número de cada mantra, cientos de miles. Y muchos cometen el error de concentrarse en acumular este número. Pero esto no es lo más importante. Lo más importante es la visualización sin distracción. Cuando se logra la deidad, la señal es que se purifican las aflicciones. El tiempo depende de practicantes. Hay practicantes que lo realizan, que lo consiguen en un día. Hay practicantes que en una semana, un mes, un año. Entonces realmente va a depender de los oscurecimientos y de las habilidades de cada practicante. Esto no dependerá de la cuenta del mantra. Así no es como se consigue la deidad, por medio de contar mantras. Entonces, uno debe de ver por sí mismo, debe de reflexionar y analizar su propio estado mental. Uno debe de realizar la visión de vacuidad y compasión. Y entonces, si realizas esto, llegas a la realización que todo carece de realidad intrínseca. Entonces son 9 beneficios. Rinpoche dice que solo mencionó 5 porque no se acuerda de los demás. Pero, por ejemplo, Rinpoche dice que algo que mencionó ayer, que mucho tiene que ver para el mérito. Por ejemplo, los que producen estos molinos de plegarias es la intención que tienen. Cuando se logra un propósito con mérito, es como el sol. Y si logras ese mismo propósito, nada más por medio del esfuerzo, es como la luz de una vela de mantequilla. Entonces, si uno acumula los méritos, las cosas pasan naturalmente. Entonces, hasta aquí llegó la primera sesión. Tenemos un descanso. Ya deben de ser nada más 15 minutos. Nos vemos aquí. Gracias.
Recording in progress. Recording stopped. Recording in progress.
Om Ahom. Today, Maga Kolita Shuin Hade, Lapasi Baratini, Hadi, or Loma Zan, he was young Joe song. Hadi younger Jonas have Chesom. The Kachika Tanga, Tassini, Hadi, Lodare, the young Gauching, my young Matinitini, said Dadiga. Dadon digital caro yore. There is a tongue of the young Roma Tangina, no tower in Kosobe, Diometer, Tiraki, actually, Benadromi Parlola. There is what Tari to Mama. Children told the chair, Tanka, you're the Togori. The true Togo, Tanka, my young Marie. Tanka, my young little Corsican door. Course gather to court of Torah. They told you now the Yamyongi, go by Yamyonga de Rason. There is a Tanghal of the hard Jadi, Kichimbo Yori, Tini, Sakwa the Saturday Jan, Tata the also Sanga Tela Tomatona, Tela, Biobishop Macabe, or the Dry not chair, or the United about me song or Goroboche. Into United Mamma, Achona, Achona, Godon, Jimbo Tasik and Jimbo Asika, Achong, by Obishop, Ba, Hata, Ba, Yeta, Jan, George, and George, Jagger, Ba, yo, Ba, yo, Jog, don't tell the Master to Tachibori, telling hard of a country, hard to Jataco. Into United Mamma to take Chimbo Yore, Tetan, she got all the song, Becky Chimbo Yore, Tini, Ruggy Jedama, young Matuna, Ruggy, Kawan, and the Rang Tipayana, then Kawan and Hara Dad Tangana, take a dozen to walk out over it, or the Marani, Chonti de Conto, the Ancache, Dubbing color, Gawati, with the Ati, Bagava, Tati Dandini, Idaman, Marandam gossip, they have a charm with this and Nandi Jungri. There is a Tati Lu Jerem Gom to take a look about Charity, look about Giant and Dogoti. They're going to fly the trees and mind the one over it. Dadon the Pachati, Dadon the Pachati, the Johnny or a charm, shower, die, he was a dung. Then Pacher don't maybe get a Namin Kita, set up to Rasa, don't remember Kai and over it. 되게 박차마자 되게 뜨먹고 박차 조교래 자기 니발을 차나 야 라동리 되는 차리 야 니발을 당나 이제 시당리 되게 난 사마들 대답이 요말 고상지 대답을 라고는 양 자양들이랑 한만났다는 배우치 보여래 되는 하 대답을 내는더니 하 장가양들이 되는 하디 대바가 시주고 가려고 처음에 하 장가지 거는 뭐지 송들이 라라니자 저건 라라로다 다와에 송들이 리주스랑 뜨는지지 뜨는지지 셈을 초하대 뜨는지지 셈 초하래 초하래 고요래 초하대로 초하면 당고 라라들이 하장 떼와치 뭐 차용을 해 다들 니바 가고 라 초와치 사들 떼와치 뭐 디샤 탄다 가가와를 들 가보자 들이 받지 마든 나랑 골배 주고 창을 들 것을 가와치를 것을 함적고요 송들 가와치는 송을 저리 따리 들이 것을 함대 시원하더니 랑을 루기지 총도 오래 들이 송을 함좀 자른지 봐 총도 오래 됐으면 네 와대 가리 설명 되나 들이 톡지 함좀 라를 만들다 시켜요네 문에 들으더니 속당 자니가 저바테 가리 다나 이 생부터 바닥에 대사지 땅에서 보면 콜로들이 딱 그요래 콜로인데 냐듯이 가래 저거 요래들은 콜로인데 냐듯이 삼재 저거래 사바체미 받은 저거래 사바가 십지는 땅에 가리 핑고 사변에서 나발은 나타오나 이런 거 새벽 농행자고 샤오나 다들 타고 탑 가리고 선 다들 나진이 뉴모를 내래지 십지선들 랭이 반냥도 너무 싸우는 진짜버래 될 가게 필요하고 레인 받아는 사 될 상태 보고도 네 상태는 필요 너가 아무도 딱지당 샘지 저기 있어 사지답지 샘지 발이 샤데 너무 멋져 발이 너기 너무 멋져 그래자 야리 상태에 직발 코소데 나한테 좀 상태 거리 당가 사바 세민이 더 상나 들이라 살랍들이 소바 치보다 상태 치고 샤르마 들때 사 문에데 사드비 다 되레데 이 강인한 사지 내도 거기서 공통나 비다 치보요 말에 들이 송다다 양들이 베레 라가 타고로 지나 대 평 조자를 때 거다 송이 톡지 받들이 이시사자는 거를 못 들어 아시는 사지자와 대비 사시바 마고 용거들 강인 용거들 말이 뭘 사지자와 상속샘지 상속샘이 사들들이 따라 상속 샘들들이 조사바 세비 받지나들이 다 조사들이 다 데려야 돼 뭐든 상담 다做 많이 봐 뭐든 상바당 이제 집어지는 문이 사가 다른 무슨들이 따리 들이 봐도리들이 상속 세비랑으로 답하시 감사도 그래 어떤 맛이 가면 도고도 돼 때문에 세는 도자도지요 말이 들이 다다 나디는 아니 뉴모 말이 들이 맞고 피고선 제로들 제게 들이랑 핑을 피냐 다되게 다되 체험도 요 되게 피누니까 연구요래 대외에 들이다니 tellatini di nibolatini yang zerje song tin tatoko ta to zerje song yore zerje tellatini ding ding zerta ningpu zer toji zerta gongpo zer song sok dom zerje ma tepna 나면 또 역사장 걸어보자 타통하더래 소동 제자 고송에 저 고송에 이렇게 땡땡 제지 라이 나는 뜻이 뭐방아마디네 가지를 제티로만 라메 트레이드라 그렇게 제 땡땡 제지에서 가지는 토지 제지를 따서다 따선받은 얘기가 짜장 거 요래 simp지 탐지에 동네를 제가 사바는 이제 무서웠잖아요 토지 제에서 생고발 대바지는 생고발 대바지더니 30g이 약혼을 때 대바는 저러래 그랬더니 이 30g에 라탑지 무슨 요래 라이시 바탑지 30랑 정도면 들 콩나베 사람으로 다 30이 별로 봐요만 산속 세부더니 콩나베 산속 세나 제용 요래 그 콩나베 산속 세부 가래 같은 공리성데 강그 산타 규지 초대를 해서 상당 이게 초대라고 타이 잡초라고 사고지도 사기에서 사기마다 사적을 잡초고 말하지. 도주체를 열려되어 삼지시 받아 또 많이 나오지. 대인한테 사기가 됐다가 담보 장미서로 초사 받아 담보 사초초도 특히 받아 장미서로 초사하지 말고 삼지사요래. 파라도 서바 저거를 힘고 가래 삼지사요래 주바사래. 삼지사는 삼지들 무슨 누를 주바고 요래. 주바면 삼지 라는 거요래. 뜻세배 세리 사바 삼년제들이 세계오만다고 그랬지. 세계오마카리 세계들 코 강원 정상요마 코마도들이 쏙 차는 코 이제 곳에 찍다요 말이. 대다버들이 대식도 코르트 강나양 스스럼 적장 하자 메이서 거기서 뭐나는 소도 대다 차는 거리. 대가이도 차도 센 나파다로 나파를 제시 얼마 되기 얼마 적지 가는 거지 가리는데 제 답이 이제 너무 거 손에 남카르치 포조요 말이 정말 답지로 타와지네. 대회들이 센터로 이제 경험이 받지라 드리고 따라서 대회들이 다 공부설지나 들이 이제 거대이가 맞아봐. 들이 죽으랑 이제 또방이랑 이래 돈이 인정 내가 또방이 되나요? 다대 또방이 삼죠. 대 말이 대 강미들은 랑이 그들이 또방이 시바데 깨면서 라데 줄었어요. 사자집에 동대를 되라. 요 마사 또방이 리아 마사 메야 마사 띠죠 마사 셉사오 나가다 대와데 대들이 랑이 또바데 포티치나 랑이 또들 셈나가다 대들이 콘데이가 랑이 저거네. 이 세부대로 하고는 상계도 탐치 상계 타고 삼가다 정하더라고 대하고 대를 다지 니지 다홍 다는 나오냐만지 대를 니지 대를 니뭐 저거 로가처럼 코와처럼 세비제 람니도 거기서 보면한테 하자 페이고요래 책도도 소멸이 싸워요래 대하고서는 들다다들 공부세스 땡땡세다 힘부세 땡지 사이 나한 제직사라데 니 땡땡세 니 부세들은 마 자단 기반 마고 자단 걸려 봐서 니 부세 포지제들 되게 septi 탑질 사이 생고만 초밥을 대파사 다나장 생고만 대파종 삼니제지 대조하들 포지제에서 그리고 공부하면 저들을 따다다 사자지고 따라하는 거 야자 대참을 안 지는 거래 야고 동마섬들 제섬들 제틱을 거래 제틱을 대단한 제문화를 보고 하면 갑자기 거래 제틱이로래 제틱 제틱이 또 제틱 demki lama tabenze matapardam matete linji toda tepaide zeta botama zerkare lama tambagara sungotuna deraga seta tetome bade chaungole tetome bakare raga seni imbara yabashi bason deraga senelo imbara terisa dabashi bade terisa shidza bade 랑게 생산지 연발들이 나오냐 반드시 요는 들이 대통령 뭐이 들이 같이 해를 대야 노절 때 근데 리 말이사도 때 대통령이 그거래 이 대통령 때 미와 차를 때라 공부해서 들이 공부를 산나를 거랑 살아서 사탑들을 거랑 살이지 이 셋다 자동제도 들이 저도 뒤에 거라더니 라니 소비면 나서 말하지 저들 나와 탐절한 게 생지 나와 생서 타주 생이 동바로 타주 성은 동주 동바이 있었을 때만 랑지지 동바지 선나가다 살람에 하고르들이 나파는 보절매 봐는데 강그 죽은 좋은거에서 때로 공부해서 이제 제리 소동 제리je서 많이 먹어 다지 Gide sanyi tamam tek doktorları soğudum zerciyatları bombozer gomam gözlerdi. Taçlardı sakin zokçin olmasın şey böyle. Dedi kodeya teha kosuna ramji tamçı ramji'nin de yöre böyle. Soğudum zerciyatı gomam gözlerdi hama ona tamam olma sonra tamçı an re de yaptığını kalema bojago re bombozer ha kosuna ramji que te zerson por ramji shokli jogoyore 하점 가르쳐버리. 대회는 타만 들어서는 대통령 라마 하고 살아서 하지. 라마를 되나 라마지 꼴라마를 송이당 톡 가로서 라마 작성 거지요네. 작성 거지요네. 라마 송을 때또 오고요 마도서베. 라랑 소소 왕도 하고 어떻고요 말이. 같이 레지다 고요래. 대다 고리 요래. 거기 저한테는 독대 대 하장 공부를做的 当마 상마 시바데 라레스 라고당 하다래 대 다른 가리 거래들 다다다 마디 용띠 시고 마도 시고도 사고 시고래 될때 마도 쏘아치고 샤마들 대바당 당도 시스템 대바 차로는 샤나들이 마 지스들이 다래 다 공부하면 저저 마 제버들이 소장 마선 적은 전에야 됐다. 공부하면 저서 티티티티고를 놀러 따가 토는 마음고요. 가니나 다톡 따와도 산지 공부를 될 제물에 비해 숨발이 들이다. 심타 따위 줘봐이 냠서 공부에 리바이 조배 탈도 봐이 제가 샘스도 봐이는 다톡을 샘장마데 랑그 샘데 고부서 말도 라마를 토하다가 대사마 파트라스디 생문에대 하고서는 되게 되야 이제 고고들어서 라신사지 이제 뭐마시 송 책은 송차례 라신사지 소하고도 다다라도는 가이고 삼시제 고도 소소때 삼시제도에 딱 같아도라는 거다 요비시고 뭐 저랑 셈랑 셈에 삼시제 오늘랑 센데 생이가 제대로 대시 토고요래 하마체제 다들 릴라트이송 스마카체 다들 레라도 스마 메들 사람 요래 사바자 뭐 사바자 뭐 너도 메들 랑 레차와레 야 사방이나 사달라면 이제 라랑 사방이 막 쪽들이 라랑들이 라랑 독통랑 독도 맞아서 왜 이게 장고리니 바질 랍초고 말이 라랑 생방속들 양면 계고래 상하냐서니 말아 하자 가르쳐버리 락고들이 차사와지는 진짜 다들 마산이 이거 공부 뜻들잖아 마산마다 서도 차이제 난 주제제 상화가제 제베들이 남절지에서 대 동다쪽과 차대요 매여데 진짜 다들 상하 뉴만 소동설제도 뒤는 다 참고요래 다 토는 제베 쪽부터는 요래 제가 샘스도 봐이도 랑 샘내로 진바들 내로 진바 철만 나와 제가 때려들 때려 사지 때려들 오 당연히 라시 사지 성대도 샘고는 랑 샘는 요 다디 바과시바 뭐 파도 다른 저바삼지 다서 따라서 사는 애들이 들랑 사람이 추운이들이 까들이들이 무적 터데 들라 다슬라 저슬라들이 따라다 본도 우리 따라니 하자 같이 따가래 사바니게 체를 송나 레주를 주독 체를 송 이치 체를 송나 사탕보도 들이 상미게 체를 송 따라지 봐도 들이 따하고 따라서 봐도 저거 라고 송 토스 들이 타마 라 토르들이 라나 기스메가 라다랑 기스메바 차용을 데려들이 다다 가지거든요. 남들 지거든요. 저쪽 그라 로제 고미데 곰도 메바다. 세부대로 또서는 데라 싸도 고무고요 말이. 저만 한거 소머리. 따단 고베세 지도를 샘장마디 차서는 데리 이바고요 말이. 데타와 같이 보를 상하동데 데탐티 다들 타만 더정하고들 타만 더잘라 렉라마다와 망보요래 더잘라 통미 파선 요래 들이잖아 왕보람들 타선나서 이 들으는 봐 저들 때 똥치고 오래 띵 타통제 그래 다 상마들 다도 산제 공방 토고 요래지 산제시와 가래 다지니도 삼제 상도 요래지 오 들이다들이 얘들 semnaqua chebiba chado yori je meleson bai tang so kwasang yori hakodo te ba hakodo nyoa gteni tang dang yo mari nyoa de kachi boyo so malari ba ge
So when we are reciting the mantra, then, as we have said, to the mantra, there's a difference between reciting when we accumulate the mantra between not just reciting it like fast, so we can accumulate a certain number of mantras, or reciting it or chanting it in a melody. And it is said that when chanted in a melody, then the blessings are much greater. And so also, if we just only focus on the number, then also it becomes a little bit troublesome for the disciples, because they don't really feel inspired by just quickly reciting the mantra. So they don't really like to recite the mantra then. But on the other hand, many disciples have said that when they chant the mantra in the melody, then really a special feeling arises in them, a real experience arises in them. Because what happens is that when we chant the mantra in melody in this way, the mind becomes completely enchanted by it, and in this way, the thoughts that kind of conflate the inner concept and the corresponding object, and all of these thoughts, basically of how we interpret outer things and so on, all of these thoughts stop, and we just focus on the mantra. So there is a big difference between just reciting, for example, if you recite the Tara mantra as Om Dara Du Dara Dura Soha and so on, Mama Ayang Gyana, the longer mantra, or if you chant it in the melody. Then it's if you chant it in the melody, then it sounds much longer. And so then also when we keep a measure of a mantra count, then it would take longer if we chant it in the melody, if we sing the mantra. But then there is also a difference in terms of how long, in terms of timing. And the measure can become the time and not the mantra count. And actually, it is better to focus on the time in this way, because if you just focus on the number, it's maybe possible that we accumulate 100 millions of mantras, but then the experience also has to arise in the mind. And so, as we said, the accomplishment of the deity depends on the experience, the feeling that arises through the practice. And so that is why we can use time also as a measure when it comes to the mantra recitation. And so then also when we chant in the melody slower, then our pronunciation, the enunciation of the mantra, each of the mantra syllables will become much more clear and distinct. So they will not just kind of blend and kind of become blurry in this way. And it's very important to recite the mantra syllables very clearly. That's also mentioned in the teachings. So, for example, there's this mantra that now we go into Tibetan spelling. So there's this mantra where we say, Bayo Bisha Mukhebe. So this word Bayo, then if we say it really slowly together with that mudra, then we really kind of dissect the different parts of that syllable, which is basically ba, so ba, ha, da, ha, and then ha, yo. So basically it becomes ba, ha, yo, and that's the correct way of saying it. And Guru Rinpoche had said that when you recite the mantra, then each syllable should be pronounced without decline, as in you don't kind of cut off a part of the syllable, but you pronounce each part. For example, you have which is called the achung, which is like a small ah. Basically, it's an elongating sound. It makes the sound longer, like an ah sound longer, and so on. So you focus on each part, each kind of character that makes up a syllable in the Tibetan now, and then you say it out. You recite it precisely the way it is supposed to be recited in the Sanskrit language, for example, as we recite the mantra. And so it's important to pronounce it the mantra syllables distinctly and very clearly without cutting parts off or like blending the different syllables. So that's very important, as it also was taught by Guru Rinpoche. And for that, because the mantra garland is very important, or the mantra chant, the mantra sound is very important to always listen to, as it also removes the ordinary imprints of the speech in our mind. That's why it's very beneficial to play a mantra on the loop in your house. So that is, if you're by yourself and not disturbing anyone, you can play a mantra on like a CD, recorded on the CD on the loop. And so this is also what I've myself been doing since a very long time, and I've grown used to that. So what happens when we always hear the sound of the mantra, then these thoughts that conflate, that grasp at the conflation of our own ideas and this actual thing outside, these fixations in the mind, and they become eliminated. So the grasping at sound becomes eliminated when we always hear the sound of the mantra. And then also when the mind habituates to that and is always kind of with the sound, and you really are kind of enchanted by the pleasant chant of the sound of the mantra, then self-grasping goes away. Normally, the sound that we hear produces thoughts of attachment and aversion. So normally our thoughts about sound arise out of self-grasping. When we hear a pleasant sound that we really like, we think that I want to hear this kind of sound, that's attachment. And then we don't want to hear another sound, and that's aversion. And these fixations arise because of our selfish mind, the ego clinging. So when we practice the deity, we visualize the form of the deity. We are again and again purifying the ordinary imprints of the body. So when you always think of the deity, the thought of me will disappear. And then by hearing and reciting the mantra, the grasping to sound diminishes. So the karmic imprints of clinging to sound and of our interpretations of sounds diminishes, is destroyed. And so then the mind becomes undistracted without grasping at any sounds or any forms that appear. So normally, for example, the ordinary mind, normally we are attached to the pleasant sounds and we have an aversion against unpleasant sounds, or when we are in a state of ignorance or unmindfulness, then, for example, we are distracted by idle conversations, meaningless conversation. It may seem that we are not particularly afflicted, but we are actually placing an imprint of ignorance into our mind. So when we are attached to the pleasant sound, that is desire or attachment. And if we have an aversion against unpleasant sound, that is anger, hatred. And when we visualize the deity and recite the mantra, then these thoughts are absent. So it is very beneficial to play a mantra recording on a loop in your home. It's really very beneficial. And also to recite the mantra in this way. And again, it's more important to generate an experience than to focus just on the numbers of mantra recitation. And as you mentioned before, Guru Rinpoche had said that some may accomplish the deity within a day or within weeks or months or years and so forth, depending on the level of one's meditation, of one's samadhi. So samadhi here means that there is an ongoing state of feeling, an experience that is present in the mind. So an experience must arise in the mind. So otherwise, if you just focus on the mantra recitation, there will be less benefit. So when you first practice the deity, so first what must arise is great love for the deity. So then you begin with the first branch of the approach, and then whenever you hear the sound of the mantra, or when you see the form of the deity, for example, when you see a tanka or a statue of that particular deity, you feel happy because you have love for the deity. And so that's the first feeling or experience that should arise. And then a second experience is with regard to the sound. So whenever you hear that deity's mantra or you chant it, you also feel happy. And so when you feel love for the deity's form, then the blessings of the deity's body will enter your mind. And when you feel love for the deity's speech, then the blessings of the deity's speech will enter your mind. And then gradually the fixation and the belief in the true existence of your body will diminish as the physical blessings enter your mind. And also your fixation on various sounds will diminish as the speech blessings enter your mind. And then with regard to the mind, we must develop a mind of love, of bodhicitta. And so that is really our kind of measure of accomplishing the deity, when these experiences arise. So when the imprints of body and speech have become purified, then the mind will remain in a pure state of samadhi, always focused on the deity and the mantra garland. So then when you begin with the practice, so you visualize the mantra garland, and so we have said the mind goes together with the revolving of the garland, and then the light rays are sent out. So then you think that love is sent out, immeasurable love, and that comes from your wish of wanting to benefit all sentient beings. For example, nowadays there is much disease in the world, and then, for example, you would bring to mind all the suffering that beings experience due to that. And then you would naturally think, what can I do to liberate them, to help them? So, and why do they suffer like that? So all suffering comes down to self-grasping, and because of self-grasping, beings engage in activities with afflictive emotions. So as a result of that, as a result of evil intentions, negative results arise from that. So all negativity, all negative results comes from the negative karma, and negative karma is accumulated with self-grasping. So therefore self-grasping must be defeated with its opposite, that is love. So that's what they need. Those sentient beings need love. So you should really think about it and really analyze it and see how your love can actually benefit those sentient beings. Because all the Buddhas have said that the basis of our mind is one and the same. And therefore our afflictions are all one and the same. And therefore also our love is one and the same. And since they grasp at a self, they need love. So I have that love. I have immeasurable love. I will pervade sentient beings with this love. So if that is your state of mind, then that is, for example, a sign of having actually become the deity or accomplished the deity. Now, if you only focus on visualizing the form of the deity, there of course are some benefits, but they're not great benefits. Even if you only focus on the clear pronunciation, the clear chanting of the mantra, the benefit might be a little bit greater, but the real benefit comes from the mind. Now, like we mentioned before, Yeshe Tsogyal, she asked Guru Rinpoche once, there are all these many wisdom beings, where do they all come from? And Guru Rinpoche had said, it's not that they come from somewhere, but what we call the deity is bodhicitta. So when bodhicitta or immeasurable love arises in you, that is a sign of really having accomplished the deity. Such a person will always be in a state of selflessness, will always think about others with great love and great compassion. So that's a real sign of having accomplished the deity. And then also as a result of that, later in the bardo, this bodhicitta will naturally project as the various Pure Lands. So we speak about I'm going to the Pure Lands, but actually there is no one who goes and no place to go within the mind. So the nature of self-grasping are the afflictive emotions. If you only think about, I want to benefit myself, then maybe there will be sometimes a slight benefit, but mostly this state of mind is toxic. And so therefore toxicity increases. And therefore there will always be maybe some benefit, but also harm. So the ultimate view to counter this in the old tantric system we have mentioned are the 4 nails. And that those are applied when we practice those 4 stages of approach and accomplishment. So we have the nail of samadhi, then we have the nail of the essence, and the nail of sending forth and gathering back, and then the nail of changeless meditation. So also these were mentioned by Guru Rinpoche. He said that these 4 nails that bind the life force are necessary in one's practice of the 4 branches of approach and accomplishment. So the first one, the nail of samadhi, is to abide single-pointedly. For example, when you practice Tara, then in an instant she appears and remains clearly in your mind at all times. And then there is the nail of the essence, which is the mantra garland, and then from that the light rays radiate and gather back. And as we said, in this way, by sending forth and gathering back, we are training the mind in love and compassion. And here we need to bring to mind the suffering of all sentient beings and cultivate actual love and compassion for them. And so then these light rays of love, when directed up toward the higher beings, become devotion, and they become compassion when directed towards sentient beings. And so in this way, when they radiate out and connect to the great love of all the deities, the wisdom beings, then when we speak about gathering back the blessings, those light rays bring back the great immeasurable love of these wisdom beings, because the wisdom beings are embodiments of love. So then these are the blessings. The blessings are is the love of all the wisdom beings. And then but as they come back and then dissolve back into the mantra garland, that means that is a sign of merging their bodhicitta with our own love. So then our own love becomes great. And so regarding bodhicitta, now in the verse yesterday we have mentioned, so the embodiment of bodhicitta, which arises from a sea of loving kindness and compassion, and so forth. So it's this ocean of loving kindness and compassion. And who has created this ocean? It is the Buddhas, and only the Buddhas can create such an ocean of love and compassion. Or we can say the emptiness, the union of emptiness and compassion. So a Buddha can create that because a Buddha first in the beginning had cultivated bodhicitta, and then in the middle had accumulated merit throughout 3 endless aeons. And so what the Buddha had accumulated is only love. And with love, he had accumulated the practice of the 6 paramitas. And so what is the essence really of these? Love and patience. You need patience to protect your love. If you have no patience, you will lose your love. So patience is like a golden vessel. And love is like lion's milk. A lion is the strongest of all animals, and the lion doesn't need to be afraid of any other animal. It's fearless. And that is kind of a metaphor of one's own Buddha nature. In the Samantabhadra Prayer, it also says, even if the 3 worlds were to be destroyed, there is no fear. So this is how the mind becomes when you realize that the mind is without birth and death. It is unchanging, without arising and without decline. So when you realize the space-like nature of the mind, you recognize that space is unchanging. And then there is no more fear. You become fearless, just like a lion. And actually, this fearless mind is also referred to as the nail of the view. And so the nail of meditation then is that when you through recognizing this, you realize that on the basis, samsara and nirvana are inseparable. So there is no need to have a concept about emptiness and thinking that it's empty, samsara and nirvana are empty, but they naturally are empty. So therefore, we don't have to conceptualize their emptiness. They already are empty. Like it is said in the Mahāmudrā teachings, without a single thought, decisively look at your ultimate nature. So without a single thought, neither thinking that it exists because everything is empty, but also not thinking that nothing exists. So without a single thought, you look at the nature of the mind that is clear and empty, abiding like space. So that is the view to sustain at all times. And within that view, all is seen as empty naturally, without having to conceptualize their emptiness. All phenomena of samsara and nirvana are naturally empty, as in seen as lacking any inherent existence. So when you understand that, then you understand what a Buddha actually is and how the Pure Lands are actually created. So first, we need to see how samsara comes about. So first there is the concept of a self, and then that leads to a dualistic perception, and then that leads to the 6 afflictive emotions, and that creates samsara. So the Samantabhadra Prayer also says there is a single ground, yet 2 paths. The Samantabhadra Prayer is really very beneficial because it explains how things really are very concisely and yet very clearly. So if you understand this point, you understand the nail of meditation. So again, coming back to the nail of samadhi. So the nail of samadhi is the single pointed focus on the appearance of the deity. Then second, the essence nail. The essence here refers to the mantra or the mantra garland. So then on top of that, on top of visualizing the deity, you visualize the mantra garland, you recite the mantra. And then third is the nail of sending out and gathering back. And that refers to the light rays emanating from the mantra garland, which makes then offerings to the higher beings. And when it reaches them, then these light rays become devotion and light rays of a pure perception. And then when they reach sentient beings, they become light rays of love and compassion, which purify the obscurations of all sentient beings. And then fourth is the nail of the unchanging nail, or the nail of unchanging meditation. And so that is when you, for instance, rest in a state of Mahāmudrā, and within that state, naturally, all phenomena lack inherent existence. And that is the ultimate nail, actually. It is said that the 3 other nails are included within this nail. Also, during the Milarepa empowerment at the end, Milarepa here speaks about 12 nails, and at the end it says the 12 nails are subsumed within a single nail, which is planted by the Holy Guru. And until you have realized the ultimate nail, you must make an effort and in supplication of the Guru. So all comes down ultimately to one nail, and that is introduced by the Guru. And by understanding it, one becomes free of any doubts with regard to the nature of the mind. So at the time when there is no doubt in your mind, you will recognize the true nature of the mind as it actually is, and the nature of the mind. And so currently, the nature of the mind is obscured by the subtle obscuration to omniscience, which is not knowing that one's own mind is actually Buddha. And so even though your mind is Buddha, you think that there is an I. And because of this belief in a self, many doubts arise. Even though we listen to many Dharma teachings, there are many doubts in our mind, and we always wonder, I wonder if this is really like that or not, and so forth. So many doubts arise. And when you become free of these doubts, then you have accomplished the nail of meditation. Then the deity, the appearance of the deity is recognized as the display of your own intrinsic awareness, appearing just like rainbow lights emerging from a crystal. So to put it in a very simple terms, in the 37 Bodhisattva practices, it says, appearances are one's own mind. So first we have to resolve that all appearances are our own mind. And then once we resolve that one's own mind itself is empty of self-nature. And empty now, again, doesn't need to be conceptualized. Don't think it's empty in this or that way, but it's naturally empty. And just like space, it's naturally empty. So when you recognize that, you rest within this kind of a present moment of the space-like nature of the mind with complete clarity. So also in the 37 Bodhisattva practices, in the beginning it says, the Buddhas have realized that all phenomena neither come nor go. So that is the ultimate realization of that single last nail. And so this is how it is explained in the Nyingma, the old tantric system. And the old tantric system condenses the essence of the new tantric system into one. And ultimately, that is further condensed into the unchanging nail of meditation. And so in terms of practicing meditation, there are many teachings on Mahāmudrā, Dzogchen, the middle way, Madhyamaka. But in essence, once you have understood these four nails, in particular the fourth nail, you naturally realize that self and other do not inherently exist. So the four nails that bind the life force are included within the unchanging nail of meditation. And for as long as we don't realize this view, we will encounter many difficulties trying to practice each separate practice on its own. And so that's why we have to go through all these hardships when we practice. It's because we don't understand this view. So what we therefore need to understand, what's extremely important to understand, is that even those four nails, the three first nails are all included within the nail of meditation, within one single nail. So here in our text, in the second verse, it says, so that the deity of the mandala appears before ordinary beings to be tamed. So the ordinary beings are tamed by the deity that is an embodiment of the three roots and an embodiment of all the jewels. So the form is the lama, the speech is the yidam, and the mind is the dakini. And it's mainly through the speech of the guru that we need to understand how to practice, because we will not know it on our own. Maybe we will be able to grasp a thing here and a thing there, but it's actually extremely rare, even for people to understand those few things. And that's why many questions arise. So we do need to rely on the guru's instructions. And so mainly in the secret mantra, that is embodied by the Yidam deity. And that is why it's important that we understand the qualities of the Yidam deity and the benefits of the Yidam's mantra. And then through the practice, an actual feeling has to arise in our mind. And the feeling arises when we develop the three kinds of faith. The clear faith, longing faith, and the trusting faith. So love for the deity arises. And then later, that leads into the kind of consummation of the last nail, of the unchanging nail of meditation. All culminates in this nail. So ultimately, when we reach the fruition, here, all levels of the path of Pratimoksha, Bodhisattva, and Vajrayana all become one, combined into one. And the unchanging nail of meditation is what brings them all into one single essence, meaning that it all leads back to the view, which is the natural state of the mind, the enlightened intent of all the Buddhas. Milarepa also had said that first you must decide upon the view. Having decided upon the view, meditation is to habituate the experience of it, and then conduct is, in the conduct, that is the time where this experience is then brought to perfection, to completion. And then the result is the completion of all enlightened intents of one's experience. So ultimately, the mind becomes completely clear as a result. So you engage in practice, you visualize the deity, you recite the mantra, and an experience, a feeling arises. So then next, as the mind becomes purified, we need to recognize that our own mind is actually Buddha. Chamgyeng Kongdrol also had said that I have not recognized my own mind to be Buddha. So he had already taught us that. And so who has recognized this? And who is the deity? So it is the Buddhas who have really recognized that, or the gurus who teach us that. So the guru introduces us, what is the deity? The deity really is love and compassion. So then that should lead you to think, so how much love and compassion do I have? There is no need to ask anyone or to tell anyone about that. It's something that you have to see for yourself. You take your own mind as the witness. And it is, no matter what other people say or think, you have to have it for yourself in your own mind. And if you have it, then that is the cause of happiness in this life and future lives. It is said, if you wish to know what you did in the past, look at your present body. If you wish to know where you will go next, look at your present actions. So it is said that if the intention is good, then the path will be good. If the intention is bad, then the path will be bad. So it all depends on your own state of mind. There's no need to ask others or find the approval of others. No one really can tell you what is in your own mind. You have to take your own mind as the witness. And this is how Vajrayana, the secret mantra, is practiced. So that is extremely important. So now when we practice the deity according to this system, the Nyingma, the old tantric system, brings into a single point the old and the new tantric systems. And so it is important that we are able to bring everything down to its essence. So we have had the various divisions we mentioned before. So on the outer level, there's the 4 attachments. On the inner level, we have the 4 levels of, the 4 empowerments. And then on the secret level, the 4 joys. And then a resultant here, we have the 4 yogas. But in any case, the 4 groups of 4s are all come down to a single essence, and that's what's most important to understand. And this is what the old tantric system does through the 4 nails that bind the life force and which are subsumed within a single nail, the unchanging nail of meditation. So the ultimate result, regardless of what path we follow, is one and the same. and that is it leads all back to the natural state of the mind. The bare mind as it is, the mind that has never been confused and deluded. That is the ultimate result. To find the Buddha in your own mind, to realize that my own mind is Buddha, and Buddha is nowhere else to be sought. So that is what's most important here to understand. And in this way, knowing that, all fixations, all thoughts will become purified. And as you purify obscurations in your mind, your decisiveness, your decisive understanding will increase. So you will come to a point where you will know yourself that this is how it is. And then that is the time where you attain the siddhi, or you accomplish the deity. So again, what are the signs of accomplishing the deity? First of all, the first sign is that you begin to trust in karma more, and so your trust in karma grows stronger, and your regard for observing karma grows stronger. And then the second sign is that your love and your compassion increases. And then the third sign is your pure perception increases. And in the end, you realize that your own mind and the deity are actually indivisible. I've said that the 4 levels of joy are related to the 4 yogas of Mahāmudrā. So these 4 are single-pointedness, freedom from elaboration, one taste, and non-meditation. And when you reach the state of non-meditation, that is when you have realized the nature of the mind, and meditation becomes then effortless. There is no need for deliberate meditation. So this was taught by Mahāmudrā Rinpoche. And so then the mind becomes completely clear, and you realize nothing else is needed, no other Buddha is to be sought. So that is the ultimate meaning of the Vajrayana. It's very important to understand. So here, these ordinary beings to be tamed, there's all kinds of different beings. There's higher, middling, lower beings, as in there are different mental capacities. There are higher, middling, and lower mental capacities. And depending on our capacity, we enter the path and then gradually practice until we ultimately reach the resultant secret mantra and attain enlightenment. And so what is the state of enlightenment? So it is in Tibetan Sangye, and Sang means to have cleared away. So you have cleared away all dualistic grasping to self and other. And Gye means vast or expansive. So then the mind becomes vast like space. So just as Milarepa had said, mind is indivisible from space. And so now we have an understanding of that, but it is a mere understanding. We still don't have enough experience of that. And so that's why Milarepa also stressed the importance of gaining an actual experience.
Bueno, aquí en esta última parte, Rinpoche habló de las 4 estacas. Cuando las 4 estacas son aplicadas, la estaca del samadhi, la estaca de la esencia, la estaca del enviar y recibir de regreso, la estaca de la meditación sin cambio.
Unless the kingdom of the unchanging space is held, the retinue of dakinis will not assemble. And so what is this, not as a holding the kingdom? It means, in other words, to realize that self and other do not exist. And so that is something that we first understand, but then we need to experience it and finally realize it. When you realize it at the end, then you come to a conclusion. You decide that self and others do not exist. You've realized it. And so the dakinis that then do not assemble or assemble means that when you have, as long as you have not actually realized that self and other do not exist, all appearances will not appear as the deity until you realize that. And when you realize that self and other do not inherently exist, they're not separate, that is really when all appearances will arise as the deity and the world as the Pure Land. So until we have realized that, until we have realized the non-duality of self and others, we have to make an effort in cultivating the antidote to self-grasping, that is love and compassion. So there is one thing we all need to make an effort in. That's the one thing is to cultivate love. So with that, I'll stop today. And so everyone on the live stream, thank you for joining on the live stream, and wish you a long life, and thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to remind everybody that tomorrow afternoon at 2 p.m. Kempo Tenzin will be answering questions, so please send your questions in to registration@garchen.net, and we will do our best to answer them. Thank you.
Bueno, continuamos ahorita con la traducción de la penúltima sección. Habla de que Guru Rinpoche menciona que las 4 estacas son necesarias y que también se ve estas 4 estacas en las 4 ramas que describió hace rato del acercamiento y el logro. Al final, la esencia es morar en la mente claramente. Después, cuando la estaca del mantra, los rayos emanan y después regresan, uno está entrenando en el amor y la compasión. Estos rayos hacia los seres superiores es la devoción y conectan con el gran amor de estos seres de sabiduría. Al retornar, traen el gran amor inconmensurable de estos seres de sabiduría, que son las bendiciones, la señal de fundir su bodhicitta con nuestro gran amor. Ayer mencionamos la personificación de la bodhicitta. La bodhicitta es este océano de amor y compasión, la unión de vacuidad y compasión. El Buda al principio cultivó la bodhicitta y acumuló un mérito por 13 eones interminables, por medio de la práctica de las 6 parámitas. Entonces la esencia es el amor y la paciencia. La paciencia es como una vasija de oro y el amor es como la leche de una leona. Entonces en la plegaria de Samantabhadra se llega a hablar de que si los 3 mundos se destruyen, no habría miedo. Así es cuando realizas que la mente no nace ni muere y el espacio no cambia. No hay miedo y te vuelves como un león. Esto es la estaca de la visión. Por realizar esto te das cuenta que el samsara y el nirvana no se dividen, son indivisibles y naturalmente vacuos. En el Mahāmudrā se dice que si un pensamiento... el Mahāmudrā dice que el pensamiento debe ser observar la naturaleza última de la mente. Si con este pensamiento ves la naturaleza clara y que lo permea todo, entonces ves esta vacuidad sin conceptualizar. Todos los fenómenos son vacuos y si entiendes esto, entiendes cómo existen los Budas y cómo se crean las tierras búdicas, cómo se crea el samsara. En la plegaria de Samantabhadra habla de una sola base y 2 caminos. Esto sería la estaca de la meditación. La estaca de la esencia, en la guirnalda del mantra recitas el mantra, después la estaca de emanar y recibir de regreso. Después está la estaca de la meditación sin cambio. Descansas en el estado de Mahāmudrā y naturalmente todos los fenómenos carecen de existencia inherente. Las otras 3 estacas se comprenden en esta 4ª estaca. Milarepa hablaba inclusive de 12 estacas, pero todas comprendidas en la estaca del Gurú. Cuando no hay duda en tu mente, entonces reconocerás la mente tal cual es, la naturaleza de la mente. Por el momento, esta naturaleza se encuentra oscurecida por pensar en yo y en los demás. Y por esto muchas dudas surgen. Aunque escuchamos muchas enseñanzas de Dharma, cuando te liberas de estas dudas, logras la estaca de la meditación. La apariencia de la deidad se reconoce como la aparición intrínseca de tu propia atención. Las apariencias son nuestra propia mente. Nuestra propia mente está vacua como el espacio y hay que descansar en este momento con claridad. En las 37 prácticas del Bodhisattva dice, los Budas no van ni vienen. En el viejo sistema tántrico se condensa todo en uno, la estaca de la meditación sin cambio. Entonces, hay muchas enseñanzas de Mahāmudrā, Dzogchen, Madhyamika, pero si entiendes esta última estaca, llegas a la realización de que no existe el yo y los otros. Mientras no lleguemos a la realización de esta visión, tendremos muchas dificultades practicando todo esto por separado. Tenemos que entender que aunque las 4 estacas, todas están comprendidas en la 4ª estaca. En el texto dice que las deidades aparecen a los seres a ser domesticados. Por el habla del gurú entendemos cómo hay que meditar. Por nosotros solos no entenderemos esto. Entonces necesitamos las instrucciones del gurú. En el mantra secreto es importante entender las cualidades de la deidad, Yidam, y de su mantra. Desarrollar los 3 tipos de fe. Tener amor por la deidad. Y cuando este amor por la deidad surge y esto llega a su consumación, se da la estaca de la meditación. Entonces, cuando llegamos al fruto de todos los caminos, se vuelven una sola esencia. Todo lleva a la visión que es el estado natural de la mente. Milarepa primero decía que decida sobre la visión. La meditación es habituar la visión de ella. Después, la conducta por la que se llega a la perfección. Uno visualiza la deidad, recita el mantra y una sensación de gozo surge. Cuando la mente se purifica, hay que reconocer que nuestra mente es el Buda. Entonces, ¿quién es la deidad? Los Budas y los gurús son los que nos enseñan eso. La deidad es el amor y la compasión. Hay que reflexionar cuánto amor y compasión tenemos. Si deseas saber lo que hiciste en el pasado, observa tu cuerpo presente. Si quieres conocer tu futuro, observa tus acciones presentes. Tu mente es el testigo. Practicar la deidad de acuerdo a este sistema Nyingma se resume en un punto. Es importante la esencia de este último punto. Entonces, como hemos visto, es importante saber que los 4 empoderamientos, las 4 yogas, los 4 gozos, todo es una sola esencia. El viejo sistema lo hace a través de las 4 estacas. El resultado final es uno y el mismo, el estado natural de la mente. La mente sin confusión ni engaño. Encontrar el Buda en mi mente. El Buda no está en ningún otro lado. Saber esto, por medio de saber esto, todas las fijaciones se purifican y los oscurecimientos. Señales de lograr una deidad. Cuando estas son las señales de lograr una deidad. El primero, confiar en el karma más fuertemente y tu preocupación por observar el karma. La segunda, amor y compasión aumenta. La tercera, tu percepción incrementa. La cuarta, la deidad y tu mente son lo mismo. Llegas a esta realización. Entonces hay diferentes seres dependiendo de su capacidad mental, dependiendo de la capacidad, entramos al camino y practicamos y obtenemos la iluminación. Por ejemplo, en el término para iluminación es sangye. Entonces, la parte de sang quiere decir purificar el aferramiento al yo. Y el ye es la mente como un espacio. El realizar que la mente es como el espacio. Entonces, entender esto, lo podemos entender esto, pero si no tenemos la experiencia, Milarepa dice que es muy importante la experiencia. Kikten Sumwon dice que el reino de la meditación, sin cambio, es realizar que uno y otros no existen. Hay que experimentarlo y realizarlo. Uno llega a la conclusión de que unos y otros no existen. Cuando realizas que uno y otros no existen, entonces es cuando las apariencias surgen como la deidad y el mundo como una tierra pura. Hacer un esfuerzo en cultivar el antídoto del aferramiento al yo, que este antídoto es el amor y la compasión. Bueno, muchas gracias a todos. Nos vemos mañana a la misma hora y es la misma información del Zoom que manejamos hoy. Gracias a todos. Fue una traducción de Leonardo Álvarez para Amigos Dricum. Que tengan feliz sábado.